and the will of the county. Father, we pray that you would bless all who are here, that thy will be done first and foremost, but the will of your people will be done. Father, we pray that your blessings are upon each and every one that who is in authority in this county, in this state, in this nation, that all things will be to your liking, that all laws and all things that are done will be to your benefit, to your dwelling, to the dwelling place of your children, to all things that are of you. Father, we just pray your blessings upon this meeting, this gathering, that we'll do the things that are pleasing in thy sight. And Father, we pray your blessings upon our soldiers and our military, wherever they are, those who are defending freedom. We just pray your blessings upon them right now. Father, we ask these blessings in Jesus' name and for his sake. Amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good to see everyone here tonight. Let's do the roll call. Okay, waiting on Mr. Thacker. Yeah. There you go. You got it. Good. Okay, let's have the count. In present. Okay. Okay. Okay, the next item on the agenda is to approve the agenda, but before we do, I'd like to add, under reports, proposed manufacturing project for the Manchester Park to the agenda, and Commissioner Kelly, you got 2 items you'd like to add under unfinished business?
Yes, sir. I'd like to bring off the table Resolution 2013-02 and Resolution 2013-03, which were both tabled at our last commission meeting.
Okay. With those changes, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
All right. Do we have a second? Which one's the unfinished business on Mr. Kelly's? Unfinished business? And mine will be under reports. I'm sorry, I thought you heard me there, Commissioner. Okay, so we have a motion, Mr. West, and do we have a second? Who seconded that? Okay. Any discussion? If not, let's vote, please. Okay, let's have the count. Oh, wait, okay. Yes, let's have the count. 19. All right. Next item of business is, has everybody had a chance to look at the previous minutes? If so, I'll entertain a motion to approve them.
So moved.
Thank you. How about a second? Thank you. Any discussion? Let's vote, please. All right, let's have the count. 19 yes, okay. All right. Item number 7. Ms. Patton, this will be you.
Number 7, resolutions of memorial, sympathy, and commendation. A, Resolution 08, Lina Baker. Resolution in honor and recognition of Lina Baker, deceased, for her devotion and dedication to the citizens of Coffee County, Tennessee. Whereas Lina Baker earned the admiration and respect of the legislative body of Coffee County and every citizen by serving as Circuit Court Deputy Clerk for 26 years from 1982 until 2008. Whereas her tenure of service was characterized by dedication, fairness, and outstanding service to the people of Coffee County. Be it resolved, therefore, that the Coffee County Board of Commissioners hereby commends Ms. Lina Baker for, I have an error in there, for her outstanding service to Coffee County, Tennessee. Be it further resolved that the family of Ms. Lina Baker receive a copy of this resolution and that a copy be maintained on file as permanent record. Passed and so ordered this 12th day of March, 2013.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Second.
You made the motion, second? All right, any discussion? Let's vote on that, please. Okay, let's have the count. 19 yes.
Okay. B, Resolution 2013-09, Linda Storts. Resolution in honor and recognition of Linda Storts, deceased, for her devotion and dedication to the citizens of Coffee County, Tennessee. Whereas Linda Storts earned the admiration and respect of the legislative body of Coffee County and every citizen by serving as EMS billing collection clerk for 20 years from 1989 to 2009. Whereas her tenure of service was characterized by dedication, fairness, and outstanding service to the people of Coffee County. Be it resolved, therefore, that the Coffee County Board of Commissioners hereby commends Ms. Linda Storts for her outstanding service to Coffee County, Tennessee. Be it further resolved that the family of Ms. Linda Storts receive a copy of this resolution and that a copy be maintained on file as permanent record. Passed and so ordered this 12th day of March, 2013.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion?
Yes, could you make those two corrections before we sign them, please?
Okay, any more discussion? If not, let's vote, please. All right, let's have the count. 19 yes. I see Kyle's here, Kyle Milloway's here, and do we have somebody from the family of Linda Storts here? If not, Kyle, once we get these signed, I'll get you a copy of the signed resolution. Thank you. Would you like to say anything? Okay. All right.
Number 8, elections, appointments, and confirmations. A, notaries.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
just save a minute. Could I make a motion to suspend the reading of the notaries and for the commission just to approve all the notaries approved by our county clerk?
How about 50? Because there's been some additions since
Wait,
I
I
put
want
the
to-
packet out.
You need to go ahead and have a motion to approve the motion.
Okay. Okay, what we got to do is get a motion to approve the notaries, and then we'll take yours.
I move we approve the notaries that have been approved by our county court clerk.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Now, add amendment, Commissioner.
I'd like to suspend the reading of the clerks and just vote on them if they're approved by our county court clerk.
Okay, do we have a second on that? All right. Okay, let's vote on the amendment, and then, well...
Is it just on this reading here?
Just on the amendment, and then we'll vote on the the motion to accept the notaries.
Is that just on this reading here?
Yes. This is on the amendment, Ken. Well, you did. 50 names takes a few minutes. Waiting on Myra and Commissioner Duncan. Okay. All right. Waiting on Commissioner Bricken now. Thank you, Commissioner Bricken. All right, let's have the count.
Mr. Chairman, that was the vote to approve.
His amendment.
Okay. I'd like to make a friendly amendment to the second part of that, to make that permanent for all.
Well, that will have to be a separate amendment, because Mr. Bricken's amendment was just one. That would be, that encompasses more than this little 60,000 word.
Okay. All right, so let's vote on the notaries. Let's go ahead and do that. All right. Okay, let's have a count. Okay. 19 yes, okay. All right. Ms. Patton, do we have any other? Okay. Let's go to item 9.
Item 9, reports, county officials, standing and special committees. Now, this is the one where you added the proposed manufacturing project for Manchester Park.
Okay, we need the industrial board representatives up here, the podium.
You ready for me to give this?
Yes, sir.
Do I turn this around? Yeah. I'm Roland Seagrose, a member of the Coffee County Industrial Board. And Chairman Comer, Bill Comer, and Executive Director Ted Hackney are in Washington, D.C., working on another project or two. But we're here today about a German company who has visited our area at least twice. And the first time they came, they was talking about buying the spec building in the Manchester Park and was going to employ 150 people. Since then, they said they want to make their North American headquarters here and employ 500 people. This is we're trying to make the last cut is coming down to two people. A place in southwest Kentucky is in, and we're butting up against Tupelo, Mississippi, and a green site in North Georgia that Ted and Bill think is not in the running. I don't know. But the deal is, and we're told by the state people, that in order to have a prayer, we got to give them this property. And when you look at the impact that 500 jobs would have on this community, it's not without some merit to do that. And I have given you this handout here that summarizes what I'm talking about. And these numbers are the best numbers we have at present. They will more than likely change. I don't know up or down or what. The state had indicated at a meeting that we had with them a week, 10 days ago, that they would come up with $4.7 million on a $6.2 million project. We've got 1.3 roughly in the spec building that we have out there in that park right now. We, the industrial board. The city of Manchester has about 20 acres there. Now, TVA has told us that they've got money available at 0.61% that they'll loan for 15 years. And if we were to borrow $1.5 million at that 0.61%, the payments on that over the 15-year period would be 872251. That's that last number on the first page. When we get that, assume all this goes through, and we make that loan, we pay off what we owe on the industrial building. We give the city of Manchester approximately $200,000 for their land, and we're asking the city of Manchester and Coffee County to consider making the payments on this $1.5 million loan. Now, what we're going to do, we'll be leasing the land, leasing the property at $1 a year, nothing, for a 20-year period. When they first came here and was talking about 150 jobs, they were talking about $11 million worth of personal property, equipment, and that kind of stuff. Well, our best guess at right now is it's probably going to be closer to $24 million. And the personal property taxes on that $24 million for the city and the county is that third line on page 2, $1,300,000, which when you divide it by 240 payments is $5,520.49 a month. So you subtract the 5,000 from the 8722 I had before, and that leaves 320202, which if we split it equally between the city and the county, that's $1,600, a little over $1,600 a piece for each, the city and the county to pay. We've got to turn in this proposal by the 14th, and we don't know where we're going to land. And it's when we do it, we'll be with a caveat that we would like to tell them that the city and the county are on board to do this, and we'll be able to give them our building under these terms and conditions. If, in fact, and we're going to have a clawback just like the state on their 4.7. I don't really expect the state to come up with that, but they said they would. But I'll believe it when I see it. But they will have a clawback, as we will, that if the jobs are not there on a timely basis, then their rent will change. They'll start having to pay the rent because we're doing this all based on jobs, and we're going to protect that proposition. But I've given you other numbers here about the other personal property taxes, but we're pretty sure it's going to be in excess of $20 million. And the economic impact that 500 jobs would have on this community, and these are numbers that TVA kicked out, and they said, you can read it there, 6.7 million in retail sales, 185,000 in sales tax revenue, and 464,000. These are numbers per year on residential property tax. So, and that's just, I pulled those numbers out. There's others, but those were most germane, I thought. But I would urge you to seriously consider making this commitment. And as soon as you can, we need to get, like I say, this is a time-sensitive thing. We've got to get it back in. And if you got any questions, I'll try to answer them.
Would it be appropriate to ask which German company?
If I knew, I could tell you. But they hold everything up here pretty close, and they want it quiet. They don't want us, if we know, we're not supposed to tell. But they're automobile related, and I think they make interior stuff for cars. And because of our location here, with all the automobile companies around this area, we think we got an advantage geographically. Now, Tupelo, Mississippi is very aggressive in what they do, and but we'll just have to shoot the best shot we can shoot and hope for the best. Yes,
Quick.
You said on a few occasions that you'll believe it when you see it when the state of Tennessee gives us
Well,
gives $4.7 million. So what happens when they don't?
Well, we'll have to borrow that money at bank rates, TVA's got up to $2 million that they can loan us at that rate. But the banks we would go to, we think we can get that money at 5%, and at that point in time, we'd have to shoot them a rent schedule that would defray that cost.
And then, at the end of the day, the private property owners are paying for that, correct?
Well, you can look at it that way, sure. I guess, I don't know. I look at it as a plus. I mean, this is huge. I mean, we hadn't had a economic impact like this since Motlow College came to this area. But it's huge.
In the report that you got, it says a retail sales impact of almost $7 million per year. Based on 500 jobs, that's estimating that each person spends $14,000 per year in sales taxes in the county. Then, is that even realistic?
Well, the thing about it is that there's other businesses that will come if this is here. And the TVA's algorithm that they've got that they feed into it calculates all that. Now, how true all that is, who knows? I don't know, but they're pretty good at what they do.
Yeah, Eric, I think the TVA model turns the money over 6 times is what it's based on.
But also, didn't they say it was also going to create 250 other jobs from this?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, okay. But also, now at ECD, we had a meeting Friday, Commissioner, and they said 4.7, and of course, you know, they said 4.7. We didn't get that in writing, but that's what we went up there for.
Yeah.
My question is, what do you need from this commission that has the teeth to it for what you need? This is a monetary issue, normally goes through the various committees.
What we'd have to do, Commissioner, is if you vote to accept his report, if you do a positive vote, then we'll have to do a resolution in the April meeting about the money side of it. But if this commission votes positive to accept his report, then that is going to be an indication of how we're going to vote in April.
And what I'm shooting at and what I'm presenting to y'all is this next to the last number, which is the 1,601.01 is the amount.
That it would cost the county?
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Is the city of Manchester on board with this?
Roxanne has presented to her committee.
Well, that's after the 14th. So
The
how
city
does that
has a
work
board
out?
meeting on Tuesday, Commissioner West. Do you think they'd be on board?
How does that work out then, that the city's not meeting until after this deadline that you have to have an answer by?
All we can do is say that we've got committee commitments from the mayors that they will try to make this happen, and until that's the way we're going to go with it, and it could change, you know, if they're not on board. But we don't give up just because of that. But it's too big a thing not to give it serious consideration, I think.
I move we accept the report.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
All right. Any more discussion?
Yes, I'd like to add just one last thing. Is my major concern, and I think it should be anybody's major concern, is the commitment, because what this vote indicates is that there should be, if this vote passes, then it's also indicating that there will be a vote in the next meeting to basically financially handcuff the county and the city to up to $6.2 million in new debt without a funding mechanism, which would then indicate that at some point later on down the road, perhaps in July.
1.5 million, sir.
Right, but you also said you're not sure we can get to 4.7,
Well,
so
no,
we may have
but
to, so
we're not
up to,
asking-
potentially up to 6.2.
We're not asking this
No.
body for any more than 1.5.
No, that's all we
Okay,
can.
well then, up to $1.5 million in new debt that could then lead to a tax increase on the other property owners, the private property owners throughout the county. So everybody needs to be aware of that before the vote's made.
How much is the figure it's going to cost the county per month, Mr. Seagross?
$1,601.01
Per month?
Per month.
For 15 years?
It's a 15-year number, yes, sir.
Okay. All right, any more discussion? If not, let's vote. Now, before you do, though, you understand that if you vote yes, then you're kind of saying we're going to vote for the money resolution in April. If you vote no and don't accept the report, that's where we'll be.
It will go through the proper committees before
Yes, it
then.
will, it'll have to.
Can I say something?
Yes.
I'm concerned that nobody seems to trust anybody.
Well-
We have, Commissioner Bricken and I had the privilege of touring the state capitol today, and the Secretary of State said that the state of Tennessee is in the best shape it's ever been in. And we're better than all the other states in the nation, pretty much financially. Now, we can't, they don't trust the federal government. Now, we don't trust the state government.
I didn't say I didn't trust them. I just know what they said. And
Okay.
When you're talking about that kind of money, I believe it when I see it. I hope they can do it. But if they
Mr.
don't, we got a backup plan.
Mr. Seagroves, did you also say to them that we are the only county in the state of Tennessee? That's why
Yes,
they're
sir.
willing to ante up that money?
They
Okay.
think it's a big deal too.
Yeah, they do.
They're not treating it like.
Okay, we're in the process of voting, but go ahead, Commissioner, you want to say one thing?
Yes.
We've already got
Mr.
one
Seagroves,
confirming.
Can we make this contingent upon the fact that we're going to get that 4.7 million from the state?
No, because it doesn't affect this. If the 4.7 doesn't come, we will have to charge them interest. I'm not asking this body for anything else, just on that.
Okay, so let's go ahead and vote. We've got some that, well, Mr. Jones is already locked in. Good job there, Mr. Jones. Yeah, we're voting. You need a battery? Okay. We'll get you one as soon as, once we get through this. Did you make it through the voting site? No? Okay, we got it. All right. See if you can take one, there's a couple of people that's absent. We'll just take that battery out of theirs then. There you go. All right, let's have the count, please. 17 yes and 2 no's, okay?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. All right. Okay, Commissioner Kelly. Roxanne, resolution 2013-02. Huh? Oh, okay, I'm sorry. All right. No, I'm sorry, I did. All right, go ahead, Ms. Patton.
Number 10, unfinished business. A, Resolution 2012-11, a resolution amending provisions of Article 4, Section 4.047 of the zoning resolution, Resolution 2006-39 as amended of Coffee County, Tennessee.
Okay, let's get us a motion and a second so we can talk about this.
Motion to adopt a resolution.
All right. Do we have a second on that? Who's second? Oh, okay, Ms. Fan. Okay. Now we're down to discussion. Before we do, though, I'm gonna hold on just a minute. Is both attorneys here? Okay, we got one. Do we have the? Okay. I'm going to let them speak before we do anything. I'm going to let them come up and have about 10 minutes each. Whichever wants to come up first, whatever. And then this commission will discuss it. Okay, 10 minutes each.
Good evening. I'm Elizabeth Murphy, for the record, and I've been speaking to you a couple times on behalf of the Coffee County Land Stewardship Alliance and a number of property owners. I called, and by the way, thank you for being receptive and available when we've called with our questions. We appreciate that. All counties are different, and you do run a transparent and helpful government here. Thank you. We'd called about adding some items to the record, and apparently there's not a specific prescribed procedure. But what I did was we prepared something to add to the record, and I'd like to have it added to the record tonight. What this is basically a collection of the chronological material that I've got so far and put it all in one place. I can't think too clearly about things unless I get it sort of start to finish. So what's in here, first of all, is the application, which is signed by Mr. Wright. Then there's the resolution, and then it just goes chronologically. There's also the April 24th Planning Commission minutes are in here, because that's the first time the Planning Commission looked at this resolution. And just to refresh everybody, this is the one that would take the requirement for M2 to be inside the UGB, takes it out of your code. So an M2 light industrial can then be anywhere in Coffee County. So it's a significant county-wide impact. So this has the minutes from April 24th from the Planning Commission when they first looked at it and said, this doesn't look very good. Then there's the minutes from the May 8th County Commissioners meeting, where it was on the agenda and then pulled off the agenda by Commissioner West. June 12th, County Commissioners took it up again and said, let's send this back to the Planning Commission and see what they think. The September 18th minutes from the Planning Commission, where they met, and they were also dealing with this bond reclamation issue, and they said, we're not finished. October 23rd minutes for the Planning Commission, where they finished their letter and said, this is inconsistent with our comprehensive growth plan. That letter from the Planning Commission is in here too, which I'm sort of just pulling all these documents into one stack. Then there was the November 13th County Commission meeting, where you all looked at the letter from the Planning Commission, talked about it further. Commissioner Chance asked questions about whether this resolution presented a question of law. So asked the county attorney to do an opinion to say, how does this work with the statutes? One statute says we cannot amend our zoning. One statute seems to say we can. What's the answer? So the letter that came back, the opinion letter from Mr. Husky, is also in here. And for those of you who may wish to have it, I brought another extra copy to hand out tonight during your discussion. If someone would like to pass that out. Do you do this? So because this was a big fat document, I only brought the original and 2 copies, but everything is pretty much either a public record, or I got it from the public record, or it came out of this. So on November 13th, when it went to your attorney to ask the question, that was the end of it for a while. Then on December 15th, there was a notice published in the paper, because y'all had not done a public notice yet. And the public notice said, consideration of request to rezone the right property from RS1 to M2. And that's actually not what you're doing. What you're doing is you're not just changing the zoning for the right property, you are changing the zoning for the entire county by taking out the requirement that M2 must be inside the urban growth boundary. So on January 8th, I've also got the minutes from that meeting in here, because at the January 8th meeting, you also had your public hearing. And at the public hearing, everyone that spoke in opposition. To my notes, no one spoke in favor. Maybe I missed that, but I don't think anyone spoke in favor. The legal opinion of Mr. Husky was provided to you all at that January 8th meeting. He discussed it. His opinion was that if you want to pass this, you have to change your comprehensive growth plan too, first. Because as it sits now, this resolution that you're about to discuss conflicts, deeply conflicts with your overall growth plan. Because your overall growth plan has M2 only in the urban growth boundary. The the proposal is to take it out and put it anywhere. Then I also have the letter dated March 6th from Mr. Husky. He was kind enough to provide it. It is public record, of course. And it's a letter that apparently he was asked to provide to the Council for Right Paving, sort of justifying further his position. Apparently there was a question. Also in the back is the vote no fact sheet that had been provided at one point to a number of commissioners. And then the last thing is a copy of the online petition to vote no, which has a number of signatures. Not sure what the exact count is. 94. And then the last section is a supplement, and that includes all the additional minutes that might have been referenced, but I just picked them up when I got here, so if there was anything loose that should be in the back. So we've made our position clear. We're opposed to the resolution. Our position is consistent now with the position that your county attorney has taken. I'm not going to belabor the point. I've spoken on this before, but one thing I will say in closing is that I've heard on numerous occasions from people in government. They say, well, we're going to get sued no matter which way we go, so it doesn't matter what we do. And I'm always very frustrated by that because I think it matters very much. I think the answer when you're faced with people contending maybe litigation on either side, the answer should always be do the right thing, do the safe thing, do the conservative thing. And here, the conservative thing is to preserve your comprehensive growth plan. Don't rip it apart. And that's all I have to say. I hope you vote no on it. That's the request from the folks that I represent. And I'll submit this. Yes, sir.
You also brought out, I believe, in one of your prior visits to us, the fact that because we provide for this, we're not excluding it within the county, so we haven't prohibited it, a M2 classification or a quarry classification within our zoning regulations. Is that correct?
I am sorry, I did not understand that question. I didn't get it.
I'll try again. Our current zoning does not preclude having a quarry. It permits quarries within the urban growth boundaries or within cities.
Yes.
So therefore, we have not prohibited someone from having a quarry within the county.
Correct.
My question that goes to that is both cities do not permit quarries within the city limits, and the geological map of the county does not provide any rock available for a quarry within urban growth boundaries. So why haven't we de facto prohibited this from taking place within the county?
I don't have those facts established, and I'm not sure that that is true, sir, and I'm not challenging you. I'm just saying I don't have those facts. I think that's one of the questions. And also, there is nothing that prohibits the commissioners from saying the urban growth boundary needs to be expanded, or we need to modify it in an area here or an area there because maybe we need to address a particular quarry. There's nothing that prohibits that. The problem with this resolution is you are throwing the baby out with the bath. In order to get this very rural property, even as a contender to be a quarry, you have to strip this light industry limited to urban growth completely out. So now your landfills can be anywhere in the county. Your adult bookstores can be anywhere in the county. Your quarries can be anywhere in the county. And everything has to go case by case by case. That adds to the commissioner's workload. It's a wholesale change. It is a wholesale change. And so if there is a targeted issue, a targeted problem about trying to figure out the quarrying issue, I would say this is not the way to go about it because this piece of property is so far away and it's out in your rural area, and now you've decimated your rural protection completely. So other than that, that's the best answer I can give you, sir.
Any other questions for her?
I have a quick one, right here, excuse me. Where in state law does it say that an M2 or any kind of heavy industrial has to be inside a UGB?
In the state law,
Correct.
I don't think that's in the state statutes. What the state statute says is the counties have the authority to do land use planning.
Exactly.
And once they do it, though, once you set that up, which you've done here, then you have to remain consistent with that, or change the comprehensive growth plan. That's what I think is the accurate statement. And again, the letter from Mr. Husky is a bit helpful, because he does get to that, and he sort of goes question by question, and then gets to the end and says, if you want to start making these wholesale changes, you can, but you have to change your comprehensive growth plan first. You got to put your horse in front of your cart.
And I just wanted to clarify that the question I raised back in, I guess it was December, January timeframe, dealt with Section 9, or I'm sorry, Section 13 of Public Chapter 1101, and that was details. And it says that a county may establish separate zoning regulations within a planned growth area for territory within an urban growth boundary or within a rural area. So, and that's where my question came from. It wasn't trying to establish any legalities either way or another. It was just clarification for me on that. I didn't fully understand what the implications of that. So that was the basis for my question back then, and I guess that's probably why we're still here today, is because that original question. So.
Well, it's a good question. To be fair, when you get into that section of the code, I've read it several times myself. It's not easy to digest or understand. They don't make it simple for you. I think you were wise to get an opinion, have something on paper for everyone to look at. But, you know, the big picture is really not too complicated. It is when you get in the weeds. But the big picture is the state wants the counties to set up a plan and stick with it. That's the big picture. And so they discourage you through the court system if you try to start making these wholesale changes that now disrupt the whole plan, because the state relies on that to some instance when they're attracting business. You know, you're talking about who you're bringing in. They like to know what they're buying into. They want to know what they're getting. So this kind of goes to that bigger issue. And then I won't take up any more of your time. I'll just submit this on the record, please.
Okay.
Maybe I'm not. I thought I was going to turn this around here a little bit. All right. I'm Josh McCreary. I represent the Wrights. I've been down here 3 or 4 times over the last several months. I appreciate the opportunity to speak again for a few minutes. I'll try to be fairly quick. I want to start by saying that each of the times that I've come down here on this, it seems like there's a little bit of confusion about what we're doing. Because even just now, when Ms. Murphy was responding to the question that you posed, she responded by saying this property. This zoning amendment that you're looking at to your resolution does not deal with any particular piece of property. This does not rezone the Wrights property. It does not rezone anyone's property within this county. It is an amendment to the zoning resolution. If anyone, after this amendment is passed, wanted to come forward attempting to get an M2 designation outside the urban growth boundary or anywhere within the county, they would have to seek a rezoning to an M2 designation, which would come before this body. And only then would it be right for you to consider whether any particular piece of property should be designated as M2. And you could reconsider all of the issues at that point in terms of the particular location at issue, whether it has proper road frontage and access to roads and its proximity to other uses and so forth. That is not an issue that's before you tonight, and it's not an issue you really have to deal with tonight, because it will come before you when and if any applicant wants a rezoning. The issue that you're actually presented with is, to me, a very practical issue. It's a very practical problem. Your zoning resolution now says you can only have an M2 designation within the urban growth boundary, but it also says you can't have an M2 designation in residential areas. Well, we can't have it both ways. The whole purpose, or a primary purpose, perhaps not the whole purpose, but a primary purpose of having an urban growth boundary is, we can all see just driving around, the residential areas tend to congregate densely or more densely within those urban growth areas. That's the way it ought to be. But you can't both say you can only put a quarry or any M2 type property within the urban growth boundary where all your residential areas are, and at the same time, in the same breath, say it can't be near a residential property. Because what that means is there's nowhere to put it. And that's why I've said repeatedly as I've come down here, with all due respect, I do not think you can knowingly create a zoning resolution that in essence zones out a lawful use. And I know Ms. Murphy has had comments about that in the past, but respectfully, I'll ask the question, where then would you put an M2 zone? Because the areas within the M2, within the urban growth boundary are going to be congregated with residential zones. So I don't know where you would put it. That's a very practical issue. And so all this would do is open up additional areas where someone could at least ask, at least come to you and ask, can we have an M2 designation in this particular location? And then you can consider it. Now, the last time I was here, kind of complicating some of the confusion, I think, was the issue with the growth plan for Coffee County. And again, I mentioned this last time, but I had been presented this document here as being a growth plan. This isn't a growth plan. So we came down here to the last meeting ready to talk about a, quote, growth plan that isn't even a growth plan. Now, I have since been provided a document that I think, in fact, probably is a growth plan. And so the position of the county attorney, and with all due respect to Mr. Husky, I like him very much, he and I get along very well, but I don't agree with him on this. And the reason I don't, I can explain to you, and that is this. Once we finally got the actual growth law that was passed by the county, the position of the county attorney has been, and I guess Ms. Murphy and others, has been that somehow this general change conflicts, quote unquote, with the growth plan. And respectfully, I don't think it does. And here's why. Two very practical reasons. The first is the urban growth law itself says, when talking about rural areas, and I'm reading from the growth law here, which is 6-58-106, and then sub C, and then sub C again. And it says, identify territory that over the next 20 years is to be preserved as agricultural lands, forests, recreational areas, wildlife management areas. Now, if we just stop there, you might say, well, what M2 use could you have there? It says agricultural, it says forest. But that's because that's not all the statute says. It goes on to say, or for uses other than high-density commercial, industrial, or residential development. Now, what I think the opponents of this would have you read into that is that means you can't have commercial, industrial, or residential development in the rural area. But it can't mean that, can it? Because there's houses in your rural area right now. If we drive out there right now, we'll find houses. It cannot mean that, and it doesn't say that. It says high-density commercial, industrial, residential. High density. That means lots of them in a congregated space. That's what you would not have in a rural area. It does not automatically preclude any industrial, any commercial, any residential outside the urban growth boundary, nor does your actual growth law. I'm reading here from page 9 of your Coffee County Growth Plan. And Mr. Husky cites to some of this, and it cites basically the statute with some little asterisks, and it says, here's what we're going to look for. Here's the criteria for RA classification, RA being rural area. And the second one says, just like the statute, preserved over the next 20 years as agricultural, forest, recreation, or wildlife management areas, or for uses other than high-density development. Development, that's what your actual plan says. It doesn't even use the term industrial or residential or commercial. But again, we know what now we could say, well, what does density mean? That's confusing. Does that mean intense, or does that mean dense, like lots of them in a small area? The growth law itself doesn't tell it. It doesn't define density. But your growth plan does, because if you read on down on page 9, it says the committee interpreted the, quote, uses other than high density development, end quote, to allow random subdivision development, which has already occurred. Now, by reading that, we know what density means. It means something other than random. Random's okay, right? Because we have random residential development. And so the only thing that's precluded, either under the growth law or your growth plan, at least our position is, high density developments of any type. High density. Now, this resolution that we're dealing with now doesn't create any particular density in any particular location. It simply opens a door to say, if someone wanted the opportunity to come to you and say, could I have an M2 designation on this piece of property, you are opening the door to say, we'll consider it. It does not mean you will permit it. It means you will consider it. And in fact, the resolution itself that you're discussing goes on to set out some criteria that would still need to be met and so forth if you wanted that M2 designation outside the urban growth boundary. So anyway, with all due respect to Mr. Husky and others, our position is that the growth law doesn't prohibit this. So if that's the hang-up in going forward with this, it ought not be. The question ought to be, isn't there a conflict right now in your zoning resolution? And I'll submit to you there is, because you can't have it both ways. You can't say it's got to be in the urban growth boundary, but it can't be near houses. You're talking out of both sides of your mouth. This corrects that problem. It doesn't conflict with the growth law. And it doesn't require you to allow an M2 designation in any particular location. So it's a very practical, common sense approach to resolve an issue that has been persistent now for a number of years in your zoning resolution. Unless there's questions, thank you for letting me speak for a few minutes.
Okay, question? Have any questions?
I've got a question here. We're somewhere getting out of skelter on what's going on. One, this commission is charged with approving the 1101 plan, which is the urban designation, so on and so forth. But at the same time, we're asking to make changes within the zoning of those. Well, the 20-year land use plan certainly does address what you were referring to, the rural development areas. But at the same time, we go down to the next paragraph, identified as rural preservation areas. Those are the ones that are in conflict. Now, the rural development areas for certain things around Timms Ford, Normandy, where they have the higher density, they have the roads and so on and so forth. But then at the same time, we go to the rural preservation, where people have their homes in the area for the rural atmosphere, and that's not addressed in these. Now, it looks to me like we need to go all the way back to the 1101, have that committee re-meet, redesignate where they are, what's going on within those. The mayor asked me about, was I on that original committee? I said, no, I was on the other side of the fence with the Metropolitan Government Committee, which would have precluded all of this. Yes, we have all kinds of conflicts, but I don't think what we're doing here tonight is going to fix any of those.
Is there a question for me?
it's not a question, but on what we have right now, I'd have to vote no, just because it doesn't address what the basic problem is.
Commissioner Kell?
Yes, sir. Just to make sure that everyone here understands, M2 classification, what's permitted? Arsenals, fireworks manufacturing and storage, solid waste processing and recycling, waste incinerators, including hospital and medical waste, so biological hazards, lots or yards for scrap or salvage of operations. And I won't go through the rest of that, but we have a lot of those areas within the county that are not currently zoned M2, they're grandfathered in. We do have one action before us tonight that's been brought off the table that would ask for rezoning of one of those areas in an urban growth area to the M2 classification. That was done, as I understand it, at the request of our chairman of our planning commission. The next thing it permits is petroleum refinery and related industries. Then it gets to mining activities and related services and adult bookstores. I'm still of the opinion of the first 7 of those items, putting them in high density or residential areas is not an appropriate thing to do. Grandfathered ones, well, we're going to live with those. But the rest of these, anybody in their right mind would not put those in urban growth boundaries in cities. This action, in my mind, and if someone called me before a judge, I'd have to swear it had to be done, for my opinion, just to preclude us ever having to have one. So something's wrong with our process, that the things that you don't put in an industrial environment or in a residential environment or cities is where we're going to put them. This process is flawed, and I too was second Robbins that we need to go back and do it. I do believe that the resolution that's before us addresses the issue and gets rid of a current conflict that precludes us having a use within our zoning that otherwise is banned because we have zoned it out of existence, which is also illegal. So we're going to have to decide which law we like breaking the most.
Okay, any other
Mr.
discussion?
Mayor, since both attorneys addressed comments I'd made, could I address both
Yes,
of
you
those?
can, and then Commissioner Bryan, was you getting ready to, okay.
Thank you for your time.
In regard to the conflict in the language, I think the conflict referred to is in a zoning resolution, and it says that it would be away from concentration of residential. But if you look at the urban growth boundaries definition in the plan, the 1101 plan, and the planned growth areas, they provide for those different things, commercial, industrial, and residential. Then that other one would be talking about where you'd locate them within those areas. And so I don't think they're necessarily in conflict. It's say where the location within that, where you put them, you wouldn't put them next to the subdivision, but you might put them next to a commercial plant, which would also be in that area authorized. On the other hand, the part that we're talking about changing is part of the zoning law. It's not part of the growth plan. And the issue was raised earlier, if there's a conflict between the 20-year growth plan and the zoning or a zoning action, can you make it? And the answer to that was, under the Attorney General's opinions that I found, no, you can't. It's in conflict and it'd be a violation. Now, on the other part, our zoning ordinance currently requires that M2 be only in a UGB. Actually, our growth plan doesn't require that, but I think our growth plan would require it to be in a UGB or a PGA, because it has basically the same things in both. One's just a little further out. So you could make a change to the zoning ordinance, in my opinion, that would say it has to be in a UGB or a PGA and not be in violation of growth plan. But if you say it can be anywhere, if you weigh it out, I think you're in conflict with growth plan.
Commissioner Bryan.
Mr. Chairman, the attorney addressed what I was going to bring up, I think, well, and when you talk about UGB area, throughout the state of Tennessee, every UGB area in the state of Tennessee has residential areas within it. And I think Mr. Husky addressed that, how you deal with not locating M2s adjacent to high-density residential areas. Now, also, I'd like to point out that, we got to decide whether to represent the majority interests of the people of Coffee County or special interests of a family or a company. And by taking action on this, we got to decide whether we adhere to the legal opinion of our county attorney or not. And is it ethical not to do that? The county legal counsel's opinion is that this is a violation of the law. The recommendation of the Coffee County Planning Commission was unfavorable in regard to this. And the precedent of illegally creating a floating M2 zone within the county RA rural area would have far-reaching detrimental impacts on all residents and property owners within the RA and the county as a whole. And what you would be doing here is committing a violation of the law and an action whereby the legal repercussions of this are going to come back on the county, on this county commission, taxpayers of this county, and the property owners of this county. So it's not going to come back on a company that's been trying to influence this and promote this, but it's going to come back on this county and this commission, as I said, the taxpayers and property owners of this county. And not only that, you're going to have the detrimental impacts that once this floating zone is created, and this spot zoning in an RA, which is in violation of law, it's going to open the door and set the precedent for any of these other undesirable M2 criteria or industries, high impact type things, as mentioned by Mr. Kelly earlier, to locate anywhere in this county. Because you'd set a precedent of doing it for one, you'd have to do it for all of them. Now, in regard to this, I'd like for four things to be a matter of record. The public was not given adequate notice to respond to this agenda item as presented today. Secondly, the resolution was designed for the benefit of one company, Wright Paving Company. Thirdly, the action would be a form of spot zoning or creating a floating zone within the RA, which is in violation of Public Chapter 1101, and Mr. Husky's already cited this. It says after growth plan is so approved, land use changes, any fundamental land use changes, is a violation and shall not be permitted. And then I would like to make a request as county commissioner that if this legislative body proceeds to vote on this resolution with or without amendments and a majority vote is received, I, as county commissioner in 5th District, in which this is related to, make a formal request to the county mayor to obtain an Attorney General of the State of Tennessee opinion in regard to the legality of this resolution and the vote of the legislative body. Additionally, I request that the county attorney's opinion regarding the resolution and any action taken by the legislative body be made a recording thereof in the minutes of this meeting. Also, the unfavorable recommendation of the Coffee County Planning Commission regarding this matter is requested to be made a matter of record in the minutes of this meeting. And I would request a roll call vote when a vote is taken on this matter. Now, what I've just requested is my own personal request in my own personal hand. And it's not made at the request of anyone else but me as a county commissioner on this county commission. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any other comments? Commissioner Alford?
I've got a question Since this involves the 1101, and we've had a request to reestablish the 1101 commission, where does that stand?
Well, at the caucus meeting, you should have seen that I chose not to open up the 1101 because of the RA. I felt it was a conflict. I talked to the attorney. You heard what he just said about it, so that's why I did it.
I'm sorry, I don't understand the reason.
Bob?
He asked for an opinion whether or not it was required, it was discretionary, and if I'm looking at it, it's my determination or an opinion that it was discretionary, that it had to be done if the request was made by a mayor of any of the three entities, the county or either of the cities. And I understand the mayor consulted with both cities to determine if they were interested in opening up 1101. There was no interest on their part. Also looked at some financial negatives on the matter and made a determination that wasn't in the best interest of the county.
What were the financial negatives, Bob?
When you open it up, you potentially open up the urbanization of bring it into one of the cities, the industrial park, and that could be a problem.
Well, they chose not to do that, though.
Well, I mean, that's not a threat that's there,
Okay.
but that's a potential
Okay.
that has to be considered.
Just want to make that clear.
Yeah, but when it's not a consideration, I mean, then our mayor also has the authority to make that request, and he's been encouraged to do that by a fairly large vote of this county commission, I thought.
Well,
So you prefer
not to open it up.
to ignore our request?
If that's your statement, yes, sir.
My comment on that,
Well-
by the way, is it doesn't make any sense for the county to have the sole power to say what goes in an urban growth area without inputs from the city. And right now, the county has that.
Yeah.
And that's,
That's exactly right.
okay.
Commissioner Alford, you've been trying to speak. Go ahead.
I'm used to it. I guess my question is for the attorney. I'm listening at some different verbiage, and apologize for being a little late, but it happens. My concerns are, we're talking about legality, and I'm listening at what Mr. Bryan was mentioning, also as far as the legal aspect of it, if it's voted in, and Attorney General's opinion, and all these opinions that are flying around. I guess I've heard so many different opinions from the beginning of where we started the debate, and we're looking at one side of legal aspects with potential litigation. I guess my concerns are, I mean, we've heard that the way it was done could have been incorrect. So where does that put the county at? I mean, where does that put us at legal if the outside entities or the private sector that Mr. Bryan is talking about, if they're coming in and they're saying, okay, this was done incorrect and this should have been done this way and that way, and you're in violation, and you've like placed it in the industrial board or in the industrial part where you know that you can't open up these types of things, where does that leave the county legal-wise from that aspect of litigation?
I don't think there's any indication that there is any illegality or any problem or any inadequacy on the countywide growth plan that was established and approved in 1999. It went through the statutory process. The key guiding sections are straight out of the statute. It was approved. There's a portion that the generals were approved together. There's a portion of it that deals with the individual cities that they put in, the portion for the county in, and it was ultimately accepted by the state because otherwise we'd lost funding. So I don't see that there's a problem with that. Now, where there was a problem was in 2009, I believe it was, there was an attempt to revisit it, but it didn't go through all the steps that it had to be a change. And so that put us looking at the original growth plan. And basically, there really wasn't any difference of consequence between that one and the original one. There was statistics and things of that nature added. But what we're really looking at on the statute then is that original growth plan, which there's no problem with. And as far as these sections and so forth and what they allow in them, that comes straight out of the state statute.
The other, I guess my follow-up question would be is, have you had a chance to look at the counties? Because these are my concerns. Have you had a chance to look at other counties that have had these same similar requests that kind of match up or mirror? Because a lot of our growth programs were mirrored from other counties. We're all in the same state. We work in, from the same statutes. So litigation that has came down the pike from these types of scenarios, what have been the fallouts and what has been positive or negative about those?
Well, the main thing, when I researched this for the commission and sent a report on December 31st, there was not a lot. There's some case law that recognized, but the key leading authority on it, there was about 2 attorney generals' opinions, and they spelled it out, laid it out quite clearly that once this growth plan, the counties had to set one up. Once they did, you got to follow it. It's got to be consistent, and if it's not, it prevails over any change that you make or any zoning action taken if it's inconsistent with it.
Well, that's my concerns, because I've seen a lot. I've been reading through our packet tonight, and we have so many different zoning products in there that we got to vote on tonight. And I guess my question is, what makes one more precedent over the other, and what makes one more true to be able to vote on a zoning and changes, and some of these are real similar.
Well,
so that's why I didn't vote for some of these last time, because it's getting really confusing for me to sit and make a selection that is going to be, that I'm going to know that I'm doing the best interest for the county legal wise, and not come back and be sued by anybody. So that's where I'm hearing so much legal stuff being thrown out there. What is real now?
Okay. And of course, we got 3 attorneys in here, so we may have 3 different opinions. But is the maybe if we had none, it wouldn't. But say, as far as whether or not the change on Woodbury Highway we made last month was a good decision or a bad decision, from a legal viewpoint, it was within the growth area, and so it was a legally appropriate decision. Then you have to decide whether or not you want to do it. On the old Manchester Highway and the new Manchester Highway, it's a decision you've got to make whether or not it's good for the neighborhood, good for the people, the thing to do. But it technically is in the growth boundary, so it's a legal decision that can be made. But you as commissioners then must decide it, what's right and what's the best thing to do. But whichever you decide on, that will be legal. On this one about changing where you can put the M2 in a rural area, I think there's where we get into a conflict. There's clearly no conflict with the growth plan on these other zoning things.
Any other discussion?
I've got a question as to, I've heard it said several times tonight that spot zoning is a violation of state law. Please show me where.
Don't have the whole code in front of me, but I know there's case law that says spot zoning is inappropriate, and I've dealt with it in some past legal matters. But no, I hadn't looked at that issue tonight. But generally, that's accepted. Generally accepted law.
That spot zoning is illegal.
Well, when we think of legal, don't confuse illegal with criminal. It may be in conflict with law. It doesn't mean it's a crime, but you're not supposed to spot zone. I don't think that's the issue, though.
Well, it
is.
The
issue really is whether it's in conflict with the 20-year growth plan.
Right, and that 20-year growth plan all along is based off of the requirements in Public Chapter 1101, and it says in there a county may establish separate zoning regulations within a planned growth area for territory within an urban growth boundary or within a rural area. What does it mean then when it says it may establish separate zoning regulations? Is that not spot zoning?
you can put zoning for an area that's split, and there's a lot of factors that can go in there. My comments are not addressed based on whether it's spot zoning or not. My opinion is in conflict with growth plan. But generally, the principle spot zoning is not considered acceptable. It
Can you give me
happens,
or can any of the attorneys give me the legal definition of spot zoning then? Because
picking an area and setting something there where nothing's not consistent with things around it. It generally, if you're contiguous with something else, it's not that's there. It's not spot zoning. But when you just set it in and there's nothing else around it that's that zoning, that's generally spot zoning.
Okay, because when I read this, it says a county may establish separate zoning regulations, and that's been the hang-up all along, is a county may doesn't say they have to, and that goes against saying that if you have to do it for one, you have to do it for all. It says a county may establish, not shall establish, but may establish, and there's a big difference there. And what I think the big hang-up is and we're so far off topic. We're talking about zoning for a particular parcel right now, and that's not even what the discussion should be about. It should be about whether or not we should be codifying the fact that our zoning regulations are not in concordance with what Public Chapter 1101 says. It says in Public Chapter 1101 that you can have separate zoning regulations for all these three different classifications, and in our zoning it says you can't. So we're that's what the discussion should be centered on, not whether or not we're talking about a particular parcel. That discussion is at a later date, and we need to focus on what the discussion should be at hand, which is whether or not you can have a county zoning regulation that is in direct conflict of our.
Well, you've got a map with it too, and that map shows here's RA, and what this proposal would do is say you can put an M2 in RA if you want to do it.
Right, and Public Chapter 1101 says you can do that.
I don't interpret it that way.
Well, what's there to interpret? And when it says that you can have anything other than high density.
You can do zoning in there, but it's got to be consistent with the growth plan and the map that are established in the growth plan.
When Commissioner Chance gets through, it's Commissioner West, then Commissioner Alford.
Well, I was just curious because I keep on hearing it over and over and over again. Spot zoning is a violation of state law. I've yet to see where it's at in state code that says it's a violation of state law. And until it can be shown as it is, I don't think we should be throwing that out there and just saying that haphazardly. If we can show somewhere where it says in 658, 10, whatever, that spot zoning is against or is in violation of state law, we shouldn't be saying that.
Commissioner Chance, I didn't say you raised the question to me.
Right,
that's
right.
my opinion. And that's my opinion. And you asked me, I didn't just bring it up.
Right. No, I understand, but it's been mentioned throughout the entire night.
I'll look up and find some law about spot zoning.
Right. And I only mention that because it's been mentioned throughout the entire evening, and I get a little, not necessarily agitated, but I want, when someone tells me something is against state law, I want to see it. I don't want to just take the word for it. I want to know exactly where. And maybe Ms. Murphy knows where it's at in state law.
I think the law professor Harvey just came out. There's not a statute that says this is what spot zoning is. So that's the answer to your first question. And I think that Mr. Tracy can back me up on this. I think that's correct. There's not a statute. It is an old concept. So the original definition that I found was literally from a land zoning treatise book. And it's a broad definition. I really quickly see if I still have it in my document, but I picked it out of what I gave you. So basically the definition is special interest zoning. So when you have something that you zone for special interest and it is inconsistent with everything around it, now you are you may be within the definition of spot zoning. That's a pretty fair statement. So it's not something that comes out of the code, to answer your question. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner West, Commissioner Alford.
Okay. In her words, inconsistent with anything else around it, we got two rock crushers already there. I mean, we're not breaking up a new box here. When I first started this thing, went to Mr. Darden, and the very first question I asked him was, Mr. Darden, is there anything in this book that cannot be changed? Is it set in concrete? He said, no, sir. Everything in here can be changed by the full body of the commission. Okay, with that in mind, then we proceeded on. Mr. Bryan has said that it's in the majority interest not to do this. Well, in 2009 and 10, there was a door-to-door campaign taken upon by some folks that went in the Hillsborough area and got 705 signatures of people that were for a rock quarry. Several other people that they just didn't care one way or the other. Just, didn't care. He says it has far-reaching detrimental impacts. I can't see that. It's right across the fence from an existing quarry. I mean, it's sitting right on the same ground almost. So how could it be far-reaching? I think Commissioner Bryan has just brought out another rug to try to sweep this thing under. We've been putting this thing off for years and years and years. It just needs to be brought up and voted on and taken care of, and let's get this thing out of the way and go on.
Commissioner Alford and Commissioner Duckett.
I guess I'm back to the attorney thing here because I'm hearing more legal jumble mumbles thrown out there, and I wished I had a law degree so I could understand all the legal jumble mumble that's thrown out in the opinions.
You wouldn't understand it all.
When we're talking about an attorney general's opinion, years ago when the attorney general would give an opinion, there would be a written documentation that would come down with that opinion so that all parties had that in front of them to look at. Did you acquire any of that when you got the
Yes, I did, and I'll be happy to supply you with copies.
Yeah, I think that's always good.
I did
Not that we don't trust you or anything, but it's like Mr. Chan says, we're here, sitting here, trying to make the best decision that we possibly can, and when we're using those types of things, the signed document, those types of things, I mean, it takes a lot of the guesswork out of it for me. So in the future, if you have an attorney's opinion, I'd really like to just see a copy of it whenever, when you get those types of things, because it takes away a lot of the guesswork. For me, it does. I can't speak for everybody else.
Yeah, those more specifically, you're not talking about by cite case law. You want cases to copy too?
Well, I mean, the Attorney General,
Huh?
yeah, that's what I
But I'm
understand.
saying on an issue, he's talking about.
Yeah, I mean, if it had case law, I'm sure that would be great, but I mean, I'm looking at the Attorney General making a decision also with CTAS and all those folks. They're looking at it as a state perspective, and certainly want to understand what the legal fallout's going to be down the road, one way or the other, because it looks like with this thing, either direction we go, there's going to be some sort of a legal fallout. I want to know how that's going to impact the county and how much legal fees the county is going to have to be paying out to go into litigation with this. That's what it sounds like to me.
Commissioner Duckett.
Mr. West seems concerned about the countywide implication of this effort. We're not talking about the quarry here. We're talking about a change in the zoning. And the ramification of this floating M2 zone would be countywide, and it would be disastrous for the county.
Mr. Duckett, how would it be more disastrous for the county that we would allow M2 in the rural area when we already allowed in urban growth boundaries in the county?
If this change is implemented where anywhere in the rural area, or anywhere at all, that you decided somebody comes in and they want to locate there, and they say, well, we've got this provision already passed, and it's already in effect, but we want to take advantage of it, and it'd be a legal suit if you don't allow it. So it's going to put a lot of pressure on the planning commission.
Yeah, but we already do it. We're going to permit it where most of the people live, and now putting it out in the rural area makes it worse on the county. I don't understand that.
Well, you don't understand it because you don't understand it.
Absolutely. That's one of the first things you said that made sense to me.
Okay, let me finish.
Okay.
The problem here is that if you allow this floating zone, the M2 zone, anywhere in the county, any of these non-desirable or even maybe desirable people that want to come in here and put up something will request it, and if we as the planning commission tell them no, they've got a case to go to court.
Well, right now, they can do that and put it in any urban growth boundary where there's more people. What's the difference? I don't understand it. We don't want it out in the county where there's fewer people. We want to put the more risky things in the urban growth areas where there's more people and more residences. Don't understand why that is worse for the county when we're going to put everybody in the rural area under the same umbrella.
Well, you folks in the city don't consider too much what we have to take care of in the county, in the rural area.
I
we
disagree with that,
we try to maintain conditions in the rural area that are consistent with the rural setting. And if you allow a floating M2 zone to be established in an RA area, you're asking for trouble.
What is a floating zone? Does it mean that if I'm a landowner and I buy a piece of property right here and it's zoned M2, that if I move somewhere else, that M2 goes with me?
I don't think you understand either.
Well, please explain.
Yeah. The problem here is not if you're in an M2 zone. The problem is if you're in a rural area and someone wants to come in and set up something that requires an M2 zone, and you allow this modification that we're fixing to vote on to take effect, you've got spot zoning, M2, to accommodate that particular effort, whatever it is.
I'm probably the only one in here that didn't understand that. So
no, you're not.
Okay. Do we have any other discussion?
Yes, sir.
Question.
I've got a question for the attorney because
Okay.
it's been brought up
All right.
a couple or three
Commissioner,
times.
and then we'll take
And what's
care of
been
you,
brought
Terry.
up is, if we're going to, whichever way we go, we might get sued. So, Bob, with your attorney hat on, which risk is higher to the county in the lawsuit? An area that's already got a quarry, what's the additional damages that they would sue for beyond what's already working in the area? They got a quarry, everything in the quarrying operation is in that area today, as opposed to someone who would come in with an M2 and sue us because we have zoned them out of existence for one reason or another, either that there's no geographical features that meet the requirements of that zone, or that their zoning prohibits them from meeting the requirements. So which one of those has a higher risk in it?
Okay, Commissioner Kidd, you can speak after he gives the answer.
That's almost impossible to answer. I guess you could say where you're talking about the economic laws, you know, if he's going to say his business was hampered and prohibited from being there, but I think he'd have to show it wasn't available otherwise. And there is a place for it, that it can be done in the county. And as I pointed out, you put them in the ordinance and allow it in PGA, in my opinion, and that would be another area, so that would open it up somewhat, if you're worried about that one. On the other hand, if you allow it to go in and it damages others, then you may have suits by a whole lot of individuals saying their property's damaged when it shouldn't be, and they'd have less damage per individual, but you multiply them up. You know, it just depends on how many sued and how many got verdicts. And you know, the main thing is make sure, I think what was suggested earlier, what you do is safe. In other words, look after the interest of the people, and make sure it's legal. Now, I've suggested a way that can expand it without, in my opinion, violating the urban growth, the 1101 growth plan.
How would that be?
Okay, wait a minute. Commissioner Kidd, Commissioner Duckett, and then Commissioner Alford. Commissioner Kidd.
Well, Bob may be fixing to answer what I was going to ask. What recourse does this board or the citizens of the county and the two cities have to open up the 1101 committee if the three mayors decide they don't want to? In your opinion, or what does the state permit for somebody to reform that 1101 committee if the mayors don't want to do it?
That opinion was based on the state statute, and it was the statute that said who could open it up. So I guess your remedy would be to ask the legislature to change statute.
Or elect a new mayor in 2 years.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly what you can do. Commissioner Duckett, and then Commissioner Alford.
The statement has been made that there's two quarries in the county. One of them was the old county quarry. It's been out of operation for 30 months. It cannot be brought back in as an M2 because its time limit has expired, and it can't be reestablished as a quarry. The other quarry, the Rogers Group quarry, was grandfathered in. Now it's shown on the map as an M2, but there was never any legal action taken to make that an M2. It's wrong on the map.
Okay. Commissioner Alford.
That scares me too, Lee, when you say that. I know, and that's, but I mean, I can't think of the question I want to ask him. I guess Mr. Kidd answered part of my questions whenever we went back to talk about what can we do to totally fix the whole deal, and it sounds like that if the mayors aren't wanting to open it back up so that it can be fixed, I don't know, it sounds like we're headed for litigation one way or the other, because the county's going to be sued one way or the other, it sounds like, and this whole is like a vicious triangle. And it just seems like there should be some kind of way that the county can come together and work together as a community to try to resolve without having to spend useless tax dollars. You know, that's not a good way of spending tax dollars for litigation. That's my opinion. But it looks like that we can't get together as a county some way or the other in the community to figure out what we can do to resolve this whole issue.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Mr. Chairman, you know, there's a lot of different opinions, and the one that is most important to me is our legal counsel's opinion. This has gone on for 8+ years, and we're sitting here questioning, well, who's going to sue and so forth and so on. This has gone on 8+ years. Our attorney, based on law and based on his research, has told this commission that our growth plan is not in violation of the law. It parallels the law. It is not in violation of the law. This party that has been influencing this over the past 8+ years, if they could bring legal action against this county, I assure you they would have brought it. 8+ years. If they had legal recourse and could have brought legal action to this county, they would have brought it. And they haven't done it in 8+ years. Because our growth plan is legal, and it's legal according to law. Now, you take action tonight to do what you're doing, you've been advised by our attorney that it's a violation of the law. So I can, just as a lay person, looking at this as logical as I can, if this county wants to risk litigation and a lawsuit, proceeding with this action tonight is the risk. Standing by our growth plan is not the risk. 8 years they've had an opportunity to bring legal action against this county. If they could have done it, they would have. So our growth plan meets law and it meets the standards of law. And our attorney has told us that. Action to go against this and try to make a fundamental change in our 1101, our growth plan, is a violation of law. So I think it's been made pretty clear to us by council tonight where our legal risk and the legal risk to taxpayers of this county rest.
Okay, any other discussion?
One last thing.
Okay,
Mr. Mayor.
Commissioner Duckett, then Commissioner Chance.
I was a member of the original 1101 committee. Our efforts were toward setting up urban growth boundaries and planned growth areas and rural. The county has nothing to gain by reopening the 1101. The cities do because they can extend their UGB, but the county will be at a loss, and they have absolutely nothing to gain to redo that. The 1101 and the growth plan are two different items.
Okay, Commissioner Chance.
The legal opinion that we obtained, that I requested, dealt with whether or not a zoning change could be made, okay, a particular parcel, and that's what this legal opinion is based on. This resolution to allow for M2 zones outside of a UGB has nothing to do with the legal opinion that we obtained, nor does it have anything to do with the legal opinions from the Attorney General's office. Those legal opinions dealt specifically with whether or not you can change the zoning of a parcel. This resolution 2012-11, it has nothing to do with a particular parcel. It has everything to do with changing some of the language to be in concurrence with Public Chapter 1101. If we can't understand that, then I pray for mercy on this legislative body.
Mr. Mayor, a question to Bob. Bobby said that we have a legal opinion that this is what the law says. I guess I thought judges ruled what the law was. We have opinions of what that would be. Are you saying this is the law, and if we do it differently, then we're in violation of the law, or is this just a recommendation for us?
We've got a combination of things. First, I was requested, I think Mr. Chance was the first one to raise this, but you raised about the section where it says no decision can be inconsistent with it. So that's what I researched, and I did it on those Attorney General opinions. You said the Attorney General opinions only relate to a specific piece of property. That's not true in the Attorney General's opinion that I relied upon most. It says whether a particular, let's see, it appears from the any land use decision, and if you, it doesn't have to be a particular property. If you make a decision about how something can be zoned if it's inconsistent, that's a land use decision. The opinion's pretty clear, and I'll provide you with a copy of these opinions, that almost anything you do where you make a decision about the use of land, it's a land use decision. And for that land use decision is in conflict with your growth plan, it fails. That is what the Attorney General says the law is. And that's the clearest authority we've got on it. He spelled it out pretty succinctly in one of the opinions in particular. Now, other questions have been raised, because then you got to look and see if it's in conflict. And that's what I was asked to do. Actually, that follow-up question came from Mr. McQuarrie. He wanted, looking back at the original growth plan, if I thought it was in conflict, it'd work. And so that's why I wrote that opinion. And I answered that question and sent a copy of it to the mayor. I think it is. That's my opinion. I'm not a judge. But based on the Attorney General's opinion and what's said in there and reading that, I think it's in conflict. It's kind of secondary. The best thing to have is a Supreme Court decision. If you don't have that, the next best thing is a Court of Appeals opinion. But where there's not opinions already opinions in an area, Attorney General's opinions are given great weight and are followed unless the appellate court finds in conflict in general. Now, an Attorney General can be ruled against, but that's a process set up. That brings up another thing. There was requests for that we obtained an Attorney General's opinion for this. I have requested Attorney General's opinions on a couple of things for the county, and I was succinctly told by the State Attorney General, we're here to service the state people, we can't give you opinions. Now, the only way we can get one on is if we could get our legislator to request an opinion, then they'll give it for them, but they won't do one for me as county attorney or for the mayor or for this commission.
Okay, Commissioner Alford.
Mr. Chairman, I agree with, I guess, everybody that said anything. I guess I agree with everybody here, but I guess my concerns are, I agree with Mr. Chancellor, I agree with what Bobby and Mr. Kelly have. I agree with, I think it's been a very healthy discussion, but it still leaves me to have a little bit of concerns, and knowing how I don't like voting for taxes and some of the things that we've done recently over the last few years of having to raise taxes to meet lawsuit requirements from penalties and fines and things through this litigation. I'm still concerned about a couple of things. When Mr. Kelly asked you a question about law, I go back to my question before. Have you actually looked at any other counties? Because I know there's other counties that have had this types of issues in the past, and what were those outcomes from those counties in those concerns of changing the zoning, floating zoning, spot zoning, whatever kind of zoning you want to call it. I don't care what you call it, what you put the title on it. What were the outcomes for those things? Was the county opened up that they had to happen with it? Did they lose money? Those are the types of things I'm concerned about, because there's going to be suits. There's no doubt. We got a whole house full of folks. You've got 2 different attorneys here. You got people coming. Bobby says, anybody can sue anybody that wants to. They were right, but the ones that I've read about and seen about, there's always been some sort of litigation that followed these types of issues.
You don't, for me, in giving a legal opinion to look to see what the other counties did around us is not a good basis, unless there's been a appellate court ruling, or at least a ruling from our judge on that same matter. And so the only way I'd be interested in what happened in a neighboring county is if it's reported in a Court of Appeals or Supreme Court case.
Do we have any of those?
Well, there's some cases that, and I've got a few, matter of fact, I looked at a lot of cases that kind of touch on it and recognize it, but nothing was as good on point as the Attorney General's opinion was. And so that's the reason I focused particularly on those, because it was most directly on point. You can have hundreds of cases that dance around an issue that don't really spell it out. And there's a lot of cases that deal with it kind of in general, and they generally recognize that it's controlling. But
I'm going to bring you back, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but I have to throw the thought out there when I get it, or it goes these days. I'm going to bring you back to Mr. Kelly's overview here. Which is stronger, the law or the opinion?
Which is stronger, the law or the...
Yeah, which is the ruling or the opinion?
Well, the statute is the law.
Right, I understand that, but in the ruling of the appellates, which is stronger, the ruling, which is the appellate, or the opinion of the Attorney General?
If you had a ruling of the Court of Appeals or the Supreme Court that was in conflict with the Attorney General's opinion, it would override the Attorney General's opinion. Until you get one of those, the Attorney General's opinion is the best thing going.
Right.
That's why it's set up for.
And to be clear, the Attorney General opinion that was issued wasn't for us specifically. It was 2 different Attorney General, the 2 different Office of the Attorney General opinions from back in 2000, roughly 12 years ago, that dealt with other instances. This wasn't an Attorney General opinion for us. It was just in general, and so I want to be clear about that also.
Okay, I think, first of all, I'm going to apologize to everybody out here in the audience what I'm getting ready to do, and I don't know where it's going to fly or won't fly or whatever. I've been known to shoot off the cuff, but I want to really know these types of answers before I vote one way.
I can't give you those answers. What's ultimately...
Well, can we not get a current Attorney General's opinion other than something that's back in 2000 something?
it's a good opinion until something changes. We deal in law all the time. A 1921 decision is law until it's changed. That Attorney General opinion is good until something comes out that changes it or differs with it in some fashion. And this was the most direct, and it was pretty clear opinion, so they hadn't asked for more recent ones, I guess, because it spelled it out quite well.
I would
Now,
also.
then you'd have your individual cases to determine whether or not it's in conflict. But the Attorney General's opinion is quite clear. If it's in conflict, a zoning action or any zoning decision is made that's in conflict with that.
So you haven't really went back to the Attorney General and said, I need a current divine.
I can't give one. They won't give me one. And I hadn't asked for it on this, but I have asked for it on other matters. And they said, no, we're here to service the state people, not county people.
Right,
I think that's bad, but it...
Well, we used to be able to get them all the time. I don't know when that changed.
I would venture to guess, and this is just an assumption, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, the reason why there are no more opinions or case law is because it hasn't come up. And whether or not these changes have been made for other counties, I don't know. But there are no other opinions, and even in this letter here, it says the case law was rather limited. It's because there hasn't been any lawsuits related to this, and I know for a fact, out of 95 counties, in the last 14 or 15 years, this issue's had to have come up.
But there's no reported decisions on it that's as good as this.
Okay, are we ready to vote?
Yes.
Okay. We're going to have a roll call vote requested by Commissioner Bryan. Okay.
I've got one question. Well, I'm just kind of branching off here. Well, I always see the ones who are against it. How many people are for this?
Are you wanting to show a hand?
I'm just wanting to know
Jackie,
the sides.
I said earlier that there was a petition that has been signed by over 700 people in that area for it.
Over 700 for it.
And Mr. Chairman, since he brought that up, I will dispute that petition and the method and means by which those people, that petition was submitted to them. Any petition is taken out there. How that's presented and what's presented to people when you ask them to sign a petition has a great deal to do with whether or not they put their name on it. So I would challenge that petition.
Okay. Any other discussion?
And then I'd like to dispute the online petition because there's people from Germany and Europe and other countries signing an online petition. So, we can dispute petitions all night. It's fine. But the fact of the matter is, we've got a resolution about changing the language in our zoning, not about changing a zone. You need to remember that.
Okay.
It doesn't vote a quarry in. It doesn't vote anything in.
Okay.
And well, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm trying to get the point across here to everyone.
All right. We're going to have a roll call vote requested by Commissioner Bryan. We're going to start with the rule. We'll do Tullahoma, then Manchester. Well, yes means you're for the change, and no means you're not for the change.
Bobby Bryan,
No.
Janet Fan, Eric Chance,
Yes.
Lee Duckett,
No.
Virgil Alford, Barry West, Tim Morris, Rennie Bell,
No.
Keith Thacker,
Yes.
Mark Kelly, Robin Hines, Jimmy Bradford, Myra Patton, Jackie Duncan, Gary Kidd,
Yes.
Russ Brickkin, Warren Walker,
Yes.
Stephen Jones,
Yes.
Wilma Thomas. No. And Sam Mai.
How many yeses? 9 yeses? 7 noes? 4 abstain. Okay. Let's go to the next item of business. Commissioner Kelly, we're getting to your business now. Ms. Patton?
Failed. You gotta have a majority.
Oh, okay. I told you wrong, it has failed. He said you have to have a majority. Have to have 11 votes. I apologize. Okay, Commissioner Kelly, when we get to these two items, you're going to have to make a motion to table, bring each one of them from the table.
Okay. Resolution 2013-02, resolution to amend Coffee County zoning resolution number 2006-39 to rezone an 18.21 acre tract located north of the old Tullahoma Highway from RS1 to C2.
I make a motion that we remove this from the table for discussion.
Okay. We need a second here. All right, thank you. Okay, no discussion, we got to vote on it.
Roll call, please.
Okay. He wants a roll call on this. Well, we've already started voting, Commissioner. We'd already. Well, we can't, your request a little bit late, I guess. Do what? Hold on a minute. What are you saying? You can cancel it? Okay. You do want a roll call vote? Starting with? Okay, starting with the rule? Okay, he said this is just taking it from the table. We don't need a roll call on that. You want a roll call from taking? Okay.
Come on, Mayor, you need to get this clear.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, all this, Commissioner, all this is just taking it from the table. It's not voting on the.
Yeah. But Mr. Mayor, even.
Okay, he says go ahead with the roll call.
Well.
I mean, with the vote. Did you have another suggestion?
No, I was just saying, when we start canceling votes.
Yes. Yes.
Inappropriate.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you, Mark. All right. Let's go ahead and vote for it. We're taking it from the table. That's all this vote is. Okay, listen to the commissioner there. Commissioner.
This will bring it from the table to the floor, and then it will be subject to a motion, a second, discussion, and then action.
Okay. Oh, you need the battery, Commissioner? Oh, you got it. Okay. All right, let's have a count. Okay, who did? What did you want to change it to, Commissioner? A yes, okay. Okay. Commissioner Hine wants to change it to a yes. Well, okay. All right. Now, do we need to go?
No, it's.
Okay, you're ready to go.
Ready for the vote.
Go ahead.
For the purpose of getting it for discussion, I'm going to make a motion to accept this resolution.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a motion to accept this resolution. Do we have a second? Okay, thank you. All right, now, let's get into the discussion.
Before we get into too much discussion.
Commissioner, see what Ms. Fans. Okay, Commissioner Kelly, explain to Commissioner Fan what we're doing, or what this is about. Yeah.
I'm sorry, these are the two resolutions. This one is a resolution out on the Old Tullahoma Highway to take a piece of property that was adjacent to the three-way market. There's currently a piece there that has some storage buildings on it, and it was to expand that storage facility, and it was a request to rezone that piece of property to a commercial application for that expanded storage facility. I don't know that there's concrete poured, but there's been digging and some other trees cleared and some other items, which is going to be part of my question with it. And if I think Mr. Rice is in the audience, so if I misspoke on what we're discussing on that one piece of property, then I'm going to give him a chance in a second to come up and correct me if he likes to.
Okay,
but this
Mr.
was
Rice?
a piece that we tabled because we had asked the Planning Commission to confirm that they had all of the application complete. I think Mr. Bricken asked that question, and we were unable to get an answer as to whether or not there was a completed application and all the, if you will, administrative processes had been met. And that's why I asked that it be put on the table till we could find out if we were approving something that had actually followed the process and did what is actually required by the county regulations. Mr. Rice, is that correct?
On the adjacent property, there are two climate-controlled storage buildings currently, and we had asked last year to get a permit to add a climate-controlled storage building. And the new one would be 50 feet over onto an adjacent piece of property that we owned, as well as the property where the current ones are. And we were told at that time, to get the permit, we had to rezone the property. So then we went through the process to have the property rezoned, and then through the zoning committee, and then here it's done.
And if I understand, the work that you've started so far is on the piece that was already within that piece of property where the not the clearing of trees, but the grading and starting your excavation.
It's actually on the new piece of property, and we have a variance currently for the permit to put that building up.
Okay, and that's where my objection. I have no objection to what you're asking to do. My objection in this is we have a planning commission that we had, I believe, a 20 vote, almost unanimous. I think maybe one abstained. It may have been a vote of this commission to put this on hold without action by that planning commission until it could be brought back before us. The planning commission chose to ignore what we asked them to do as a county commission and go on and process something on their own after we had asked them for information so that they could totally ignore us. On that basis, I'm going to bring forth a motion, one, to approve this so it actually gets done, but I'm also going to bring forth a motion that we disband that planning commission and appoint people who have some integrity and who will follow the wishes of this commission. I'm very upset to see that somebody went behind our back knowing what was voted on by this commission. And if we can't control what's done with the agencies within this group, Mr. Mayor, I'm going to ask that you bring us some nominations of people to do that. And in a second, I'm going to bring up the next one of these, which is even a worse case scenario of what's happened because we didn't follow our process. But I am very upset to see that this has happened. And my amendment to this resolution is that we pass this on the basis that we replace the current planning commission.
Okay. Our parliamentarian said that amendment's out of order. Joe? Explain.
Need an explanation, Mr. Kelly? An amendment has to be related to modify, add to, subtract, or delete from the main motion. Your main motion is this resolution 2013-2, and so that amendment would not fit with that main motion.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Bricky.
Mark, I think you're on track on the planning commission, and I hope that comes up either later or it comes up as an agenda item at our next full commission meeting. But as far as this one resolution, I get confused again. Does this motion on Tom's piece have anything to do with these other two resolutions later on in the agenda?
Russ, I don't think that they do. That if I have the information correct, that area was actually zoned as a commercial piece of property. So we're extending a piece of zoned property to an owner who already had that piece of property. I don't believe, I think the three-way market part was actually grandfathered in, but these were actually zoned for this piece of property where the current facilities are. That's what I've been told. And then that the adding on to those extends that piece. It does have some implications because we have the other discussions. One is the M2 zoning next to it, but the other is the two pieces of property, one along between the railroad track and the Old Tullahoma Highway, the other across the road from that same area, that we're being asked to look at whether or not that should be brought in and made as a commercial area as well. I have some opinions on that, but I think each one is a succinct matter, and in this case, because there's already zoning there, that we're following through with an existing plan.
Mr. Kelly, I'm on the planning commission, and you questioning my integrity sort of gets me riled up because we didn't go behind anybody's back. We haven't changed anything. You tabled this motion, and it's stay tabled. Now, how he got his variance went through BZA. You tabled it. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And we have taken no action. So you need to get your facts straight. Because questioning my integrity on that like we did something underhanded is not true. This has not gone back through the planning commission.
Commissioner Duckett.
I'm also on the planning commission, and I resent the statement that you made about the integrity of the planning commission. The planning commission works without any pay. They're a group of people who are dedicated to doing the rural affairs of the county. That's what they deal with. It would appear that some folks in the city would like to third base the planning committee. Pretty apparent. And I resent any statement to that effect.
Okay, let's have some more discussion on this resolution. Is there any questions or discussion? Okay, question be called now. You wanted a roll call vote, right? Okay. All right.
Mr. Mayor, will you restate what we're voting on?
All right. Have you got it? All right. Hold on just a second.
It's a resolution to amend the zoning resolution 2006-39 to rezone an 18.21 acre tract located north of the Old Tullahoma Highway from RS1 to C2.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? If not, we're going to start with the rule. No, it don't. We'll get to them. Maybe. Well, it does involve Mr. Wright. Okay, no. Okay, we're going to start with the rule. We'll do Manchester and then Tullahoma. Bobby Bryant. You gonna pull it? Yeah, there we go.
You ready?
Yes.
I vote yes.
Janet Fan. Eric Chance.
Yes.
Lee Duckett.
Yes.
Virgil Alford. Barry West. Tim Morris. Rennie Bell.
Yes.
Keith Thacker.
Yes.
Warren Walker.
Yes.
Stephen Jones.
Yes.
Wilma Thomas.
Yes.
Sam Mai. Mark Kelly. Robin Hines. Jimmy Bradford. Myra Patton. Jackie Duncan. Gary Kidd.
Yes.
And Rush Bricken.
Okay.
Mhm. 19 yes and 1 abstain.
Okay, what was the count?
19 yes and 1 abstain.
Okay, 19 yes, 1 abstain, all right. Yeah, we can. Commissioner Kelly?
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to make a motion that we remove the, gives you the right one, 2013-03 resolution and place it on the table for discussion.
Okay. Take it from the table, you mean? Okay. All right, so we can just go into discussion.
Well, you gotta,
Yeah.
Get a second on the motion
Yeah.
taking the table.
Okay, we got a second. All right. All right, let's vote, please. Can't discuss it. Huh? All right, what was the title? Okay. Yeah, then we're gonna do the roll call on the, okay.
I'm okay with not doing a roll call on this, but I do
Okay.
want a roll call on the regular.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we're voting to take it off the table. Mm-hmm. Well, he's working on it here. Hang on, just. All right, hang on just a second. All right. Are we ready to vote now? Are we ready, Ken? Okay, let's vote. Commissioner Thacker, is yours not working? Okay. All right, let's have the vote. 19 yes and 1 abstain, is that what we got? Okay. All right, now we can go into discussion. We don't have to.
Okay. For discussion purposes, I'm going to make a motion that this application be denied, and then we'll have discussion on why.
Mr. Kelly,
hold on a minute.
Honestly, once you've got it on the floor, that activates the motion and the second from the last meeting, and so.
Okay, so we're ready for discussion.
Ready for discussion, yes, sir.
I'll start with some discussion.
Okay.
And I'll have a couple of things in this. Mr. Rice, I understand.
Commissioner, could you hold just a second? What is the title? What is the title? Yeah, let's read the title here, Commissioner.
You got it.
Okay.
A resolution to amend the Coffee County zoning resolution 2006-39 to rezone the property of Tom Rice located between the Oklahoma Highway and Highway 55 to M2 Special Impact Industrial District.
No.
03.
But this, you need to.
The 2006-39 established this as an R1. This is asking to take it to an M2 classification.
But you got a resolution coming up, you got the right resolution, you needed the right resolution number to amend this.
You don't have it. These are added at the beginning of the meeting. You don't have these resolutions.
Commissioner?
I'll try to make my
Commissioner
explanation.
Thacker, you can have mine here.
I've given you mine. The reason I'm going to request or suggest that we deny this application is for several reasons. And I'll go back to the Planning Commission again. I have the application that was submitted on this. Mr. Rice did it in good faith, I'm sure, because he did it at the request of the director of our planning department. He's filled the application out. It's one page. Then I would direct your attention, I'll have to find it. M2 Special Impact Zoning Districts under 4.047. Then you have to go down to subcategory directing with it, and it goes to section preliminary development plans and review. Process for submission and review. The process for review and approval of any M2. Any M2, not just the rock crushers. Special impact consists of 3 progressive elements: review and recommendation of a preliminary development plan by the Planning Commission as specified in subpart 2. There was no preliminary development plan submitted. Consideration by the Board of Commissioners and the review of the process. The preliminary development plan. All applications for approval of an M2 special impact district shall be made by the landowner or an authorized agent. The plan content. All preliminary development plans submitted under this section shall be accompanied by the following: site data and general information, documentations disclosing the identity of all landowners, lessors, optionees, contract purchasers, lessors, and other persons having any present or anticipated future financial interest in the site. Copies of all required state and federal permits. There's not a permit attached to this application. If the property is to be acquired or leased, copies of all options, purchase contracts, leases, or similar documents. Preliminary development plan under B, to include the following information: letter from the property owner detailing and authorizing the proposed changes to the zoning classification, location map indicating size and shape of the property, preliminary site plan prepared by a Tennessee licensed engineer at a scale. I won't read all that stuff to you. Haul routes and highway assessments indicating all roads with access to the property, school bus routes, existing widths, conditions, types, services, weight loads, and existing traffic data, as well as all classifications of all access roads, location of appropriate dimensions. They do not have to submit a bond. Proof of liability insurance. A tabulation of the uses and activities proposed for all land areas within the site. Ability of the site to meet site location criteria presented in subsection E.2. Operational data to include the following: sufficient information to fully divulge the type of operation as well as the intensity and the ultimate intent of the proposed activity, nature of materials to be utilized. It goes on and on. Environmental data, geological data on the site prepared by a licensed geologist. And I'm sorry I offended the Planning Commission, but gentlemen, these are your regulations, and you skipped every step in the requirement and approved it and sent it to this committee. That may offend you, but it sure in the hell offends me that you would send me garbage like this without doing your job. That's why I'm against it. In addition, I'm against it because it puts a piece of property with our current regulations. Once it's classified as M2, I know Mr. Rice doesn't intend to do something different with it, but it permits that property because we don't have any controls or any other bonding requirements except for one item. We require bonding if you're going to have mining operations. We don't require bonding if you put in an arsenal or petroleum plant or biohazard. We need to fix these regulations before we approve any M2 classifications. This area is grandfathered. I understand that. Mr. Rice is operating within that grandfather provision. I know he brought this forward at the request of our planning director. But gentlemen, this is an inappropriate action, and it doesn't meet any of our requirements. And that's why I'm asking for this to be denied at this time and give us opportunity. And I hate to tell you, but our planning director tells me correcting this kind of major deficiency on what can happen in our community is not as important to him as getting the pool regulations fixed so we can approve pools in subdivisions. I would hope we would give him a different direction than that.
Any other discussion?
I would like to echo what Commissioner Kelly says. I agree with his assessment and the fact that there is no, at least doesn't appear to be any kind of complete application or anything like that. But I guess I venture to ask a larger question that we spent a lot of time on earlier is, how is this not spot zoning then?
Because it's in a UGB.
Doesn't matter. It's still spot zoning then. Exactly.
That operation was there before zoning was put in place, so it's grandfathered in under residential or whatever.
Of course, next door it is, but what is this parcel currently? An R1? Then that's spot zoning. But that's even secondary. The fact that there's not a complete application shouldn't even be up for vote now. I mean, if there's no complete application, then how can you recommend a zoning change?
The zoning change was proper because it's in urban growth boundary. It's residential. We wanted to change it to commercial, and that's what we tried. It got tabled. We didn't do anything else with it.
I'm sorry, but it does not say in here that just because in the regulations, it does not say that if a piece of property is inside the UGB that all application requirements are void and null.
Well, it's residential at the moment. We tried to get it zoned properly, and it got tabled, okay?
Okay, Commissioner Kidd.
Mr. Rice, how many houses of a R1 classification are on this property that you want turned into the M1?
On that property, there are no houses, but I want to make it clear now. I asked for a permit for a storage building, and I was told by Mr. Darden that I had to zone that piece of property M2. It was not a request from me. I don't want it M2. I think M2 is a loaded gun. You don't want to do that anyway. Now, we've tried to negotiate Mr. Darden down off of that, and I don't know if we're going to be successful with that or not. But it was not my intention to do that at all. There are no houses on that property right now.
That's what I thought. I'd looked at the property and the maps, and I drive out there every day, and we've got a piece of property that's R1, but there's no houses on it. And he's wanting to do something besides R1 with a piece of property that has no R1 on it.
He's not wanting to do it.
Well, he's not wanting to do the M. He wanted to do the
You don't want to do the M2.
Right, right. He wants to do something besides R with it, and there's no R on it. The R is just
No, the zoning
capricious.
is not indicative of how many houses are on a piece of property. It's just you can have a blank empty parcel and it can be zoned R1. You can have a blank empty parcel and it can be C1. It doesn't matter. It's not indicative of how many houses are on a piece of property. The fact of the matter is, we're being asked to change a parcel from an R1 to an M2, and it hasn't followed the complete and it hasn't followed up the process that's laid out before inside the Planning Commission.
Well, it sounds to me like our zoning laws are completely screwed up.
All right. Let the attorney speak, please. Go ahead, Bob.
Mr. Rice, is this
just adjacent property, is it all one tract, or?
No, it's adjacent to the scrap metal yard.
No, I mean, you've already got some units there.
Well, I think we're talking
Yeah.
about,
It's a
we're talking
different-
about the M2.
It's a different piece of
The
property.
one
If
on
you could-
55
If you
highway.
could imagine the scrapyard on Highway 55
Right.
and the storage buildings next to Three-Way Market, it's a property that is between those two. It lays along the railroad tracks really on the new highway. I own all of the property, but I haven't requested to do anything with the property. It's just, yes, I did that at Mr. Darden's request, that in order to get a permit for that storage building, then I had to rezone all the property I own down through there, so.
Well, I don't really understand what that's going to do.
Mr. Rice, the actual scrapyard, CFC,
Yes.
it is now commercial property?
No, it's
It's
grandfathered,
originally was when I
Commissioner.
opened it in 1989. It was, I don't know what it is. I think residential now, but.
Yes, but it's grandfathered.
Okay, it's operating at M2, but
Right.
what is it zoned now?
I would have to ask to make sure.
Residential?
Probably so.
Yeah.
RS1?
What are you putting on this land? What's on this land?
Nothing. It's just vacant land.
Or what are you going to do with it?
I have no plans for it right now.
Then why would it even be an M2 if he doesn't even, and you know, if there's a process that has to be gone by for an M2
Yeah.
and applications and all that, were you not told that you had to do all these applications and turn in a plan and all this stuff?
I hired an engineer to try to accomplish what Mr. Darden told me to do, and then I had somebody, a new plat drawn up as well, several new plats drawn up to accomplish it.
Okay.
Ms. Fan, I think the answer to your question is, though, Mr. Rice wanted to expand his current C2 classification, which is where his storage buildings are, over by Three-Way Market.
That's over on
And he was
Oklahoma.
instructed by our planning commission director that in order to accomplish that, he was required to go ahead and get his current operation zoned as M2, which I don't believe is any requirement at all. But that's what he was trying to do, what he was asked to do. And that's why I said at the beginning, I have no question at all about what Mr. Rice has done. I have no concerns at all about what he's attempted to. He has tried to do what he was asked to do. I believe he was given totally inappropriate requirements, and I don't even know how they came into being.
Commissioner Thacker?
Yes, Mr. Rice, if I understood what you said a moment ago, your CFC property is right now under our zoning.
Probably so. It was, you know, I got a business license when I started in 1989.
Okay.
It's grandfathered in.
I don't think we've done anything.
All right.
No, there was no industrial zoning in the county at all at that time.
All right, and you pay then at a RS tax rate?
I'm not sure.
No.
You'd have to ask Jimmy
Yeah,
White.
He is paying industrial, he's not residential. Yes.
Yes.
Commissioner Brickman, after they,
Well, first of all, if you go back on the 1101 map, Tom's current property is actually coded as an M2 parcel. At least the map designates it as M2, so I assume he's paying taxes or whatever M2 is.
He is.
Zoned. So it's on the map as M2. There, I'll call a question to this motion.
question's been called. Okay, we're going to do a roll call vote. Is that right, Commissioner? Starting with the rule. We'll do Tullahoma, then Manchester. Okay. Yes means you're voting for it, and yeah. No, no, no. No.
Yes means you're in favor of the resolution, no means you're
That's
against the
exactly
resolution.
right. Okay.
Okay, now, so
Start
there...
with Rule, then Manchester.
Mr. Mayor?
I mean, start with Rule, then Tullahoma, then Manchester. Yes. Hold on just a minute. Commissioner Bryan?
So that everybody understands, because if we're going to vote, I think we need to understand what we're voting on. Voting yes means you're wanting to do what specific?
Okay, Joe, tell them one more time. If you vote,
I'd have to have the resolution, but yes means you're voting in favor of the resolution, no means you're voting against the resolution.
That, right. Yes, that's what I want to clarify.
Okay.
So people, yes means it would change to an M2 zone as opposed to an RS1.
Right.
Okay? I can understand the difficulties with the M2. Okay? And I understand what made the Planning Commission done, just trying to get things classified as are being currently used. But I can see the problems with changing it to an M2 and it allowing other type uses under an M2. So I would tend to vote for, leave it as an RS1 as opposed to going to an M2, because then he's going to pay taxes based on his use. But then we're not going to have the problems associated potentially with it being an M2. Now, that's how I see it, just to try to clarify a little of this
Okay.
for myself.
question's been called, and then we're going to do the roll call vote. We're going to do the county first, Tullahoma, then Manchester.
Bobby Bryan,
No.
Janet Fan, Eric Chance,
No.
Lee Duckett,
No.
Virgil Alford, Barry West, Tim Morris, Rennie Bell, Keith Thacker,
No.
Mark Kelly, Robin Hines, Jimmy Bradford, Myra Patton, Jackie Duncan, Gary Kidd,
No.
Rush Bricken, Warren Walker,
No.
Stephen Jones,
No.
Wilma Thomas,
No.
and Sam Mai.
Okay, let's get the count here.
20
What is it?
noes.
20 noes? Okay. Yes, ma'am.
I find it very strange that because the planning, and no offense, I'm not disputing your integrity, but that the planning commission sent this forward without the process of having to be done for an M2, and then we get down to voting on it, and both of you voted no. I don't even, you know what, I think this planning committee right now, no offense and no integrity, is making this commission look like complete idiots.
Okay, let's go. Okay. Is the audience ready for a 10-minute break, too?
I'd rather have a German than how much.
But you don't have to change it. I think what they, some of those growth areas try to get them. Yeah, it's just.
Good, that ain't nothing, but it is. It's them choosing the majority decision. You what? Them choosing the majority decision. Because some people want to show their butts in that thing. In any other sector of the world, hello, I don't care, hello.
Gotta find Commissioner Ricky. Is that the only one that's short? No, that short version? Huh? Really? Really, John? Okay, we like Virgil and Sam, don't we? See if you can get them, Roxanne. If you can get them back in here. Waiting on Virgil and Sam. Roxanne's going after them. You got it. I will if listen, I'll bring it. How about hamburger steak dinners? Huh?
Is the Jiffy Burger still open? Is the Jiffy Burger still open? Can we order in?
It's going to be closed in 10 minutes, Commissioner.
Well, can we order in?
I think we need to.
I thought I'd do something.
I think you're right. Okay, let's get to number 11, new business.
A, Coffee County Commission procedural rules.
Okay. All right, we got a motion to approve. Do we have a second? Now, we can speed this up a little bit.
So moved.
All right. All right, discussion.
No, Mr. Mayor, I'm going to ask that we hold it.
Excuse me just a minute. Okay. Do you know what's first? Who seconded it? Who seconded? Virgil? Okay. Okay, go ahead, Commissioner.
I noticed that Mr. Chance hasn't returned yet, and he had some questions on this that I think have some merit.
There he is.
So, yeah, I'd like to make sure before we call a question that he has
Oh, we're
a
not.
chance to ask
Okay.
a few questions on
Okay.
it. Well,
Commissioner.
procedural
Okay, now we're on
rules.
procedural rules?
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
You-
okay.
you
I do
raised
have
some
some
questions on that, I
Yes.
think.
Okay.
I spoke with Commissioner Kelly beforehand, and while I've reviewed them and read over everything, I've got a number of questions and comments and things such as that. And if it's acceptable to the body, what I'd like to do is ask that the body be given, at least until the next legislative committee meeting, the opportunity to review and submit recommendations or even any changes, rather than spending the next hour to do it tonight, and have all those in writing by the next legislative committee meeting for consideration. And if they're not there, too bad. So,
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know when it is. I guess, Chairman-
Bobby, it's the last...
Our April 9th, our next meeting.
Are you asking about legislative committee?
Oh, legislative.
That's where
The
this came
fourth-
from, correct?
The fourth Monday of each month is the regular meeting of the legislative committee.
Okay, the fourth Monday of each month.
Correct.
Okay, and so if can we have, that'd be the end of this month then?
Yeah.
Is when we'd have another legislative committee meeting. Okay, and if it's okay to be able to submit comments, suggestions, ideas, and things like that, because there's some things that need some clarification, I think, and I'd like to.
Mr. Chance, you need to make that as a motion to postpone this till the next meeting with those particular parameters you just mentioned.
So forth. So make that motion then, that we postpone this until the next meeting, allowing individual commissioners to have the opportunity to go to the next legislative meeting with written comments to submit to the committee for consideration.
Okay, do we have a second? Thank you. Discussion?
So, Mr. Chance, so we understand as legislative committee, you're asking any commissioners to submit in writing any changes to what is here.
And not just, it just changes recommendations.
Recommendations, and
clarifications.
then come to legislative committee to present that.
Yes, sir.
And then at that time, we'll vote on it and then bring our recommendation once again back to the
Right,
body.
yeah, and have some just open discussion there. If someone comes there with a list of recommendations, have, not just read them, but actually discuss why they're being recommended, and have some open discussion, and you know, have it still be resolved by our next meeting. That this will be resolved and voted on at our next meeting, but just give that, and since we're only, what, a week and a half out from another legislative meeting, have the opportunity to do that, so.
Okay, any other discussion?
Gee, I welcome the chance to read this through again, but yeah, I understand that. I don't have any, Bobby, you're the chairman.
I don't have any problem at all, especially tonight. So I think if people study this further, anything you want to suggest to the legislative committee, I think they'll be very receptive to hearing it and discussing it and seeing what we can work out. Hopefully what we bring back to the committee or the commission the next time will be ready to vote on, hopefully.
Well, I appreciate that, and it's just everybody sees and looks at things a little bit differently when they review documents and things like that. And there's a few things that I've caught that I don't think we want to belabor tonight or anything like that. And it'd probably be better to be in a smaller setting with just open discussion than all the formal discussion. So
the legislative committee spent several hours working on this and actually went from the top to the bottom. So I can assure you a lot of times voted to it, but there may be some little succinct areas and so forth. And one of the primary things was trying to get this updated because some of the practices and procedures, I think, have sort of become a little bit outdated by our actual procedures that, you know, we do here on the commission. So that's fine to do that.
And I agree, and I'm glad that it is being updated, because when I got my first copy 2 years ago, I thought, wow, this is antiquated. So I'm really glad that it is being updated.
Question on the motion.
Yeah, well,
Okay, question been called.
one comment for Mr. Mayor, when we take a vote, in here, remember, you're supposed to ask before we count votes. Does anybody want to
Well,
change
really,
that?
I'm not supposed to ask.
The clerk is
The clerk's
supposed to.
supposed to. We're trying to get the clerk, but she don't know that, so.
I know.
I'll take that, thank you. I'll go ahead and see, if you'll remember the last meeting, she was doing that, so. But I'll be glad to take back over. All right, let's vote, please. All right, we're waiting on Commissioner Bell. Where is Commissioner Bell? I've seen that before, but not here.
He must have left. Everything's
Okay,
gone.
Ken, can you take care of that? We'll have to stop the vote. Well, I don't know that he did, you know, but I think, hang on a minute. Okay, is that all right to do that, Hipperstein?
Tonight it is.
Okay. Boy, tell you what, you're getting easier. Okay, did we get an abstain? All right. All right, now, does anybody want to change their vote? If not, let's have the count, please. No, he can't now. He abstained. Okay, let's go to the next item. Okay, what now? Okay. Yeah, that's what he's going to do, mark him as absent.
B, Coffee County Animal Control Standard Operating Procedures.
Move it be approved, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, who seconded it? Okay. All right, discussion? Thank you, Mr. West. Discussion? Question being called, let's vote, please. Okay, does anybody want to change their vote? If not, let's have the count. Okay. Ms. Patton, you're on a roll here. We've got to give him just a minute to set up.
Resolution 2013-10, resolution to establish an updated occupational safety and health program plan, devise rules and regulations, and to provide for a safety director and the implementation of such program plan.
All right, I have a motion to approve. Do we have a second? Second. Any discussion?
Confirm who our safety director is.
What did you say? I'm sorry.
Alan
Alan
Lindley.
Lindley. He's also our EMA director, too. He's got 2 hats. Or maybe 3 or 4. Okay, any more discussion? If not, let's vote, please. All right, does anybody want to change their vote? Okay, if not, let's have the count. Okay, 19 yes? All right. Ms. Patton?
D, budget amendments.
Okay.
Okay, I have 2. I'll read them together unless there's an objection. First one's 118-2013-6 for the ambulance fund. The second one is 101-2013-7, which is for the general fund. I'll make a motion or have a question about
Yeah,
these 2.
I need a motion and a second here.
Motion to approve.
Okay, second? All right, thank you. Discussion? All right, let's vote, please. And this did go through Budget and Finance, so.
Yeah, it was approved January 25th.
Hey, Mary Ann, I've already let them vote on this one. I've already told them to go ahead and vote. Okay. Waiting on Commissioner Alford. Okay, does anybody want to change their vote? If not, let's have the count. Okay. All right, next amendment.
Okay,
Give him just a, Ken, you need a,
The school budget amendments, these were presented to Budget and Finance on March 6th, and they were approved.
okay. I need a motion and a second.
So moved.
All right, second? All right. Discussion? Okay, and this did,
Which resolution is this one now?
these are the budget amendments. Tell them which one, which budget amendment.
There were 3, they should be in your agenda packet. There was 2 for the general purpose school fund and 1 for the cafeteria fund.
And that's the one we're doing now.
Voting on all 3?
Yes.
Yes,
We were
and
voting on
this
3
this
together.
did go through Budget and Finance. Any other discussion? Commissioner Thacker, are you okay with that? Okay. Let's vote, please. All right. Well, we got Ms. Fan.
Mr. Chairman, mine should be, I'm not sure if I've gotten the right button.
Okay. Okay. My question is, anybody want to change their vote? And you said if yours is not, you want
It should be a yes.
Okay. Let's have the count, please. Mr. Alford, I believe you did that. Okay. Mary Ann, have anything else? Okay. All right. Next item, Ms. Patton.
Resolution 2013-11, resolution to amend the zoning resolution number 2006-39 to rezone the property on the north side of the new Manchester-Tullahoma Highway, Highway 55, beginning at and including map 110, parcel 121, and continuing in a northeasterly direction to H.P. Womack Road and including 4502 Old Manchester Highway, map 110, parcel 021.00 from RS1, low-density residential, to M1, general industrial district, to a setback adjoining C2 zone property which fronts on the Old Manchester-Tullahoma Highway and excluding map 110, parcels 134 and 134.01, which represents the original CFC recycling site.
Okay, let's get a motion and a second. All right, do we have a second? Thank you. Discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I don't know who the gentleman was earlier in the audience, but said, we need graphics when we see this junk. It sure would be nice to have a map to see what we're talking about on this. I've driven through that area and drive through it all the time, but it seems to me there are several, I'll say, commercial buildings, but they are all grandfathered pieces through that area. Everything else is residential or vacant land that is zoned residential. And I guess I'm concerned that we're moving to make that all commercial. We heard the words earlier, spot zoning.
I think this is M1 though, Commissioner, not commercial. This is the M1 we're talking about.
This is to make all of that M1 through there?
Yes, this is all M1 we're talking about.
Well, I would still be...
The commercial's on the old highway.
Okay, and this is between the railroad and...
Yeah, I know it gets confusing.
I'm easily confused anyways.
Well, most of us are.
Still same concern that what's through there is being grandfathered, and I would like to see and have an understanding of what has been zoned, what hasn't been zoned in that area, to look at it and realize, some of it could be grandfathered in. But I'm like Virgil was earlier, I'm very uncertain that I want to delve into this until we have an understanding of what it is. And that area seems to be, I'll say, a viable residential area based on the discussions we've had tonight. And I'd like to preserve that in that area rather than just making it a commercial or an M1 kind of a facility when there's no real need for it or desire for it that I've heard. We don't have people that are wanting to change what they're doing with their lands. And for the record, want to make sure that there is an understanding and that we all are in agreement with what that is. Should this stuff be zoned to the M1 and later on when we talk about the commercial area, the residential areas are still residential, and if someone had a piece of vacant land and wanted to build a house on it, that they would still be permitted to build the house on it under the residential grandfather, just like we do with a business. If it's grandfathered in, they can continue operating with as that type of a business, even though they haven't been zoned for it. I'd like to make sure we understand that. I understand the taxes. It's going to be charged based on use, not upon what zoning is.
You're right.
Taxes are always based on use, not upon zoning. But that we have the people recognize they will have the ability, should this ever get approved, that they can go in and modify a house and add on to it and not have to worry about meeting the setback requirements of the current zoning. They're grandfathered in. They will follow the setbacks of that type of an application. And I want to make sure that we're in agreement that that is the case.
Commissioner Ricken, are you wanting to say something?
Yes,
Bob
sir.
has a hand up too.
Oh, okay.
My hearing's not all that good, Mr. Kelly, but part of what you said I had a little problem with. You said if somebody owns a vacant lot and it gets zoned another way, like commercial or M1, and it had been residential, it's grandfathered in. I don't think that's what the law is. If you had a house there and it was actually used for residential, then it would be grandfathered in. But just having a lot there, if it's not being used in one capacity or another, would not grandfather it in for something to a prior zoning. So they would be, in my opinion, stuck with the new zoning situation.
Okay, Commissioner Rickett?
I'd just like to know who sponsored these resolutions.
I think they rose with the planning commission.
They come out of the planning commission.
Right, but all resolutions require two sponsors.
Wait a minute. Tim, did you want to say something?
Glenn brought this forward for us to try to clean up the urban growth boundary from the Pepsi plant up to where CFC's at, but where Coffee County, the paper and the plastic recycling is. No, sir.
Who's the other?
But I mean, when you look at that on the new Tullahoma side,
If it can't get two commission sponsors, it shouldn't be before the full.
Point of clarification on what Mark said a moment ago.
Okay, let's hear Commissioner Thacker.
Okay, point of clarification on Mr. Kelly's motion a moment ago. An existing structure that is already there, a house for instance, that somebody builds onto, say, adds a bedroom. Now that is still allowed under RS1 even though it's been changed to a C2, correct?
Add on to existing uses is okay.
An existing home.
That's carrying on existing use.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
It's not built
But I
up
think
totally,
Commissioner
it's not
Kelly,
built-
I think Commissioner Kelly was talking about a vacant lot. Oh, we got to get back to the sponsors, though. We got one sponsor, and that is Commissioner Duckett.
I'll sign off and sponsor it so
Okay.
that everybody can talk about it. But I
Okay.
mean, when he brought that forward on the new Tullahoma Highway on the 4-lane, making that M1 to where they can go in and build businesses on that railroad track, that's why we've allowed Caney Fort to come in and start building on that railroad, and we've already offered them or allowed them to open up that one parcel by the Pepsi plant. I mean, I'm not trying to run anybody out, but there are no houses that I can think of on the railroad side of Highway 55. There are across the road, but that, and then if you want to go back on the Tullahoma Highway, there are a couple of houses back there.
Who exactly is the landowner?
There are several parcels down through there.
Tom Rice is.
Okay,
Mr. Rice owns part of it.
Yes.
And they're not requesting these zoning changes? It's our coach director that is?
We started with Highway 53 back in December, looking at changing parts of the zoning down Highway 53 from Manchester city limits out to the Dollar General store.
Which you did.
And we changed that. And we changed that to commercial, which affected nobody who lives there now. Now, if they so choose with the new school going out there and they so choose to sell that piece of property and build a convenience store or whatever, then it will be able to build a convenience store, and then it would be commercial property.
Okay, Commissioner West, did you have?
Basically would echo what Mr. Kelly said, that I agree with him, but does anybody go out and actually physically look at these sites and determine what is and what isn't and how it's going to impact and that kind of stuff, or they just look at the piece of paper and say, okay, we'll do that and we won't do that? I don't know. Does Mr. Darden do
We got
that?
two commissioners on the planning
committee
commission
apparently doesn't do that.
That can answer that question. You sure can.
Is the gentleman here that was asking about his mother's house and adding a bedroom? Did I misunderstand Gary Cordell? Did he tell you you could or could not add a bedroom?
Could.
grandfather in under her tax rate is all. We cannot change the footprint of the house. So we
No.
can build a building on the property for a garage.
Well, the attorney says you can. You
Yeah, I
can
thought
add it.
Jerry
The
told him
attorney
he couldn't
says-
add a bedroom on it.
The attorney says that you can.
So Mr. Carter's telling me wrong.
Well, he must have, if that's what the attorney says. So you can.
I disagree with Mr. Darden on that. It's continued use of the same operation.
I know that question was asked at I asked that same question to the codes director of Manchester, and the answer was yes, you could. And so, our
Mr. Mayor,
attorney
I
said,
asked
yes,
you
you
to
can
tell
in the
Tahoma,
county.
but have not got an answer.
Well,
Yeah, and Janet, my concern is, I agree with you, and that's why I agree with what Bob has
Yes.
said, because it's my understanding under Tennessee statute, if you have a current land use and it is grandfathered in, it has whatever statutes govern or regulations, codes govern its current use. And as long as you continue that use, if you abandon that use for a period of 12 consecutive months, then you lose the rights of that. So if you were to have a residence and your mom died and you didn't have anyone living in that for a year, it may no longer be a residence. It may go to the new zoning. But you can use it as its current zoned, as it was zoned. You can change it to the current zoning. But if, in this case, if we're talking a commercial zone has a 250-foot, this one's the M1, and I don't remember what the setback is. I was thinking it was 500 feet, but I don't remember. But the commercial has a 200-foot, 250-foot maybe restriction as far as right-of-way. You don't have to follow that. You can, your house is within that. You still only are subject to the 35-foot setback on the front and whatever the sides and backs are. And then you can add on, you could build a separate garage. You could build a separate building. But I understand what was said earlier. I believe that incorrect, and that's why I was asking this and wanted Bob's opinion. And I agree with Bob that everything I've ever been involved in follows exactly what Bob told us is the right answer.
okay, we're going to let Mr. Daniel finish speaking, then Mr. Morris, and then Mr. Thacker.
I would just like to, y'all vote on this so we can get it clarified. You know, that's not because he said or he said,
Mhm.
whatever. But let's get it right, and then we can vote on it.
Right.
Or y'all can vote on it.
I personally would like.
No, we can't do that. Commissioner Morris?
Can I make a motion to table F and G and me take these back to the planning commission and bring them back
You
cleaned
can
up?
make that motion.
Yes,
If you
sir, I
give a
sure
second, we
will.
can vote on it. All right. Okay, any other discussion? All right, question being called, let's vote on it. Table F and G to go back to the Plan Commission. You can. Okay, does anybody want to change their vote? If not, let's have the count. Okay, all right, Mr. Thacker, do you want to change your vote? Okay, anybody else? If not, let's have the count. Okay. All right.
Mr. Mayor, before we jump to another topic, I know
Okay.
it's probably out of order, but one thing I would like to suggest in when we're doing these kind of things, I know we posted notice in the paper, but the gentleman and lady that spoke earlier really made a good point. We really ought to be posting the property, or we ought to be sending letters to the adjacent homeowners,
Yes.
telling them that a change is coming, rather than
I
letting them
think that's a good point.
second
and
guess it.
I believe the city actually has
The city does that,
signs.
Franklin County does that, Bedford County,
Okay.
Rutherford, I've been told all
Tim?
do that.
Mr. Duckett, you heard that. Okay. Are we ready to go to the next item? Ms. Patton?
Resolution 2013-13, hazard mitigation plan.
Let's get us a motion second.
Motion to approve.
All right, second. Thank you. Discussion?
Mr. Mayor, I can tell you, I've read through that thing a dozen times.
And?
I think there are some issues that we need to clarify in the future. I certainly would not hold this up at this time for what minor adjustments need to be made to this. I also point out that it's very critical to this community because without this in place, it comes up every 5 years. Without it being in place, it jeopardizes our ability to get assistance should there be a disaster.
Okay. Any other discussion? Let's vote, please. Rush, we're getting there. Okay, does anybody want to change their vote? If not, let's have a count. All right, let's go to the next item.
Before you do that, I'm going to ask that we suspend the rules and that we bring up the reapportionment before the presentation.
Okay. Okay, Okay, you making that as a motion. Do we have a second? We're voting to suspend the rules and change some things around. Say it one more time, Commissioner Kelly.
I'm making a motion to suspend the rules so that we will do the Coffee County School Board reapportionment first and then have the presentation at the end.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. No discussion. We got to go ahead and vote. Okay.
Suspend the agenda, might change it around.
Just move the item around.
It takes 2/3.
2/3 vote now. See if we're gonna get that.
Doing this first, doing K next.
Okay, now, let's see, Tim Morris, all right. Andrew Kidd, and Virgil Alford. Okay. Does anybody want to change their vote? If not, let's have a count. You gotta have 2/3 vote, which we got.
You have to go to the item.
Well, he won't swap around. Well, what he said he wanted to do is...
Well, still got to do 14.
Yeah. Yeah, we do resolution 14, then we do the school reapportionment.
Yeah,
then the energy.
Okay.
Okay, let's going to 14 now. Roxanne?
Resolution 2013-14, resolution to amend the Ambulance Authority Resolution 2011-45.
Thank you. Second? Thank you. Discussion? Let's vote, please. Okay, does anyone want to change their vote? If not, let's have a count. Rush, you gonna make it? Okay. I know you had an early start this morning. Had to go to Nashville. Okay. Waiting on Miss Patton.
I want to get the resolution.
Okay, Coffee County School Board replacement. You can give them time for it. The Coffee County School Board reappointment?
Coffee County School Board reapportionment. I had the information in the packet. I didn't have the resolution at the time. It was at your desk when you came in. It's resolution 2013-15.
All right, let's get a motion in a second.
Move to approve.
Thank you. Second? Who seconded it? Okay, thank you. Discussion? Okay, if not, let's vote, please. Okay, does anyone want to change their vote? If not, let's have a count. All right, next item.
Next item, energy saving bond presentation for Coffee County Schools.
Oh, you're clapping because it's the last thing on the agenda, I know. LaDonna McFall, the Director of Schools for Coffee County, and I'm excited to be here tonight, even though it's past my bedtime, it's a school night, to talk with you guys about something I'm very excited about and looking to modernize, upgrade some of our facilities while at the same time saving us some money. I brought this up to our school board, and they approved the feasibility plan unanimously. We then moved on to the Budget and Finance Committee. We presented to them, and we're now presenting this to you as our funding body. Scott Stevens, Randy Malden with Train are here with me tonight, and I just want to talk to you a little bit about what this can do for our county school system, and then we'll be available to answer questions you might have.
All right. Thank you. My name's Scott Stevens. I'm with Train. This is only about 3.5-hour presentation, so no. Typically these take about 20, 25 minutes depending on discussions. However, since you guys had a full agenda, I will move quickly through it. As Dr. Fallon said, what we're here to talk about tonight is performance contracting. And basically, what is performance contracting? Well, it's the use of guaranteed savings from maintenance and operational costs that you can use to upgrade your facilities.
Okay, everybody knows it's on the screen, don't they? Behind you.
Sorry.
So.
All right. It doesn't replace your normal operating budget. It doesn't replace your normal capital budgets. But what it does is it provides a third-party revenue stream to upgrade some of the infrastructure inside your schools. So if you look at the chart up here, this is probably the easiest way to explain kind of what it is. What we do is we go into the school systems, and we're also going to be looking at the county buildings as well. What we do is in each of these areas, you got your gas cost, electrical cost, water and sewer. Currently, you're paying X amount of dollars every month to the utility companies for those services. We go in, develop those different energy conservation measures. What it does is it reduces your cost of what you're paying to the utility company. We take that savings that you're not paying the utilities, and we're able to put that back into your schools. So that's what I was saying a minute ago, when it's able to generate a third-party funding mechanism. All we're doing is we're taking, this is a good chart, we're reallocating the way you're already spending it. So for an example, if your utility bills cost you $1 today, then we're going to go in, look for energy conservation measures where we can drop that cost. Say we drop it down to 75 cents. You've already budgeted $1 to be spent, so you got 25 cents there that can be used to pay for those improvements. So the way these projects work is this is something that you don't have to go to the tax base for. This is something that you don't have to come up with additional capital for. This is something that you're already spending. We're just taking the money away from the utility companies and reinvesting it back into your schools. And again, this is what I was with the tax dollars. Basically, the same thing works. I mean, we'll be able to carve out those savings pieces from all three of these buckets, and actually, instead of using tax dollars, we can put those back into the schools. One more. What we look for with performance contracting is basically we look for to change the game, because typically what you're looking for is excessive utility cost, deferred maintenance items, aging infrastructures, basically a lot of the large cost items that as you have schools or buildings that have some age on them, the mechanical equipment, the lighting, the water systems, all of that starts to deteriorate. So we look for ways to improve those. The way we do performance contracting is we have, basically it's an 8-process step. The first one is the introduction. The second one is a feasibility study, and I'm going to cover that. We've already done a feasibility study with the school systems. So the next one would move into a preliminary audit. So the way we look with these performance contracting okay, for example, I said we came with the savings I used for $1. So you're spending $1, we're able to come in and reduce it down to 75 cents. Train actually guarantees that savings. So if there's any shortfalls, say for example, we say we're going to save you $200,000 a year in utility costs, and you only save $50,000, Train will write you a check for $150,000. So we will make sure that you're whole to cover the debt service on the energy savings. Train backs that up. It's not a shared savings contract. So if we say it's $200 and you actually save $250, then the $250 is to your benefit. We don't share in that additional savings. So the risk is all on Train. So what have we done so far? We've done some audits and we've done some preliminary benchmarkings. Things that we look for when we do the benchmarkings is we can actually compare your facilities with similar facilities in the same geographic area and the same geographic use. So we're comparing your schools, live data, to other schools around your area. We know based on our data where those costs should be to operate those schools, and we compare you. So, next one, please. The early indicators, from an engineering standpoint, we look at energy intensity per square foot. That's basically how much electrical, water, energy, gas that you use on a per square foot basis. Operational expenses, excessive repair maintenance cost, obsolete equipment, and emergency repairs. As equipment starts to age, you start having a lot more maintenance issues and repair costs with it. Okay? So what do? We've taken a look already. We've done the initial benchmarking. We got 9 schools. What we've done is we've compared your 9 schools, like I said, with similar school districts in the area. Right now, based on those benchmarking data, we think that we can save the schools about $204,000 per year in energy costs. So we can reduce their annual utility costs by about $204,000 is what we're looking at. And again, the way Tennessee law is written, you're able to stretch these out to 15 years. Okay? It doesn't mean you have to do 15 years, but that is the max you can do. So if we take $204,000 over a 15-year period, that means that you can spend $3 million worth of improvements to your school. That $3 million that the energy savings will pay for, that includes any cost of debt service, so interest, any cost of ongoing support or training for the maintenance staff, that's everything 100%. So there's no additional funding that would be required from the county or the schools. The energy savings that we would produce will actually pay for the entire program cost. So essentially it's a budget neutral, and sometimes it's actually budget positive. Depending on how the savings work out, sometimes we actually put money back into the system because we got more savings than we have cost. So, and that's where the next step comes in, and that's one of the reasons that we're here tonight. And I know I'm going really fast, and I apologize, but the feasibility study that we've done in the results says that you are a candidate. Basically, as I went through and looked at the benchmark, we've done the early analysis on it, we know that every year you're throwing approximately $204,000 away. You're getting zero benefits from it. So what we're asking for is an opportunity for us to come in, move to the next step, which is a preliminary audit. There's no cost to the school system, there's no cost to the county, to come in and verify what our computers have already told us. So again, what we would do was take that $204,000 that's being thrown away now, and we'd figure a project that can put that money back into your school system. The second process in this will be a preliminary audit. That's where I'll bring my engineers in. We'll gather 3 years of utility data, real-time data. We put it into our systems. We have our engineers walk the schools. We interview maintenance staff. We understand what's going on. And then we'll come back with what we call a preliminary proposal. That preliminary proposal is about 80% complete. That means that we've done our due diligence where we can sit down, look you in the eye and say, okay, you're going to have approximately X amount of savings. The project could be X amount of dollars. And up to that point, Train is willing to take that on our own financial responsibility. There's no cost. The only reason we do that is because we do meetings like this. We want to make sure the school board's on process. We want to make sure that is on board. We want to make sure that the Finance and Budget Committee is on board. And we want to talk to the county commissioner because as the funding body, as we move through this, We want to make sure that everyone's on the same page and we all understand how the process works. If the project does come back where it is a self-funding project, meaning not having to raise any additional taxes or for you to put any money in, we would like to ask for your support for that project for the schools. After the preliminary proposal, where we're going to come back with basically a developed program, then we would move into the investment grade audit. That is the only time that there would be any financial liability. Basically, the investment grade audit is where we bring in a third-party engineering firm to validate everything we've done. So we do that on all jobs. We do it for two reasons. One, we want to make sure that the school system, the county commission, everyone has a third party that's validated what we've told you. So you've got a second set of eyes looking on it. The second reason is our board of directors, since we are financially guaranteeing those savings, they trust what we do, but they want to make sure they've got somebody else looking at it because they will carry the risk for that $204,000 for the next 15 years. So the way we reconcile is every year stands alone. So it's not like if we save you $200 this year and next year we save you $240, we're not going to have a credit. Every year stands on its own, because every year you're going to have to fund that through, a general obligation bond or a municipal lease or whatever the funding mechanism is. Every year your payments are going to be there. So we figure that we should be on the hook with you. So every year we reconcile those savings. So again, if we don't make our guarantee, we will write you a check for the difference to make you whole. The investment grade audit is our cost. There is no markup on it. There is no profit for Trane. It is our cost. I don't know what that is yet. We're way early in the process. The way we do this is if we have developed a project that is cash flow neutral and everything looks good, and for some reason you say, you know what, I just don't want to do this. We just want to get reimbursed for our cost. Otherwise, we would be losing millions and millions of dollars on an annual basis. If you move forward with the project, that cost is rolled into it because that engineering had to be done anyway. So it is a developmental cost that's rolled into the project. It is funded with the savings, so again, there's no out-of-pocket cost. Usually, by the time we get to the investment grade audit, the school board, the county commission, everybody is 100% on board, and 99.9% of the time, there's never a check that's written for the investment grade audit because we will be in front of you several times going through this process where we can understand what we're doing, how we're doing it, addressing any questions, addressing any concerns. The two final phases, basically the final proposal and the authorization for us to move, and then that's when we come in and we would actually start the project. So next slide. So I kind of talked about this. The first step we've already done. That's coming in. We've done a feasibility audit to basically justify me being here. Sometimes we'll go into school systems or municipal governments, and we'll come back and say, hey, you're doing a great job. There's nothing here we can really do. And that's fine. And that's the reason we do these type audits, because we want to make sure that when we come up and talk to you, we've done our due diligence and we really need to be here. So the second step is a preliminary audit. And basically that, again, is no cost. We will bring our engineers in. We will go through the utilities for 3 years, and we will start developing the project. Well, we look forward to do that since at that point, with the size of your school system, we're probably going to spend about $30,000 just in engineering fee. That's what it's going to cost me. But what we want to do is make sure that everyone here kind of understands the concept, and if we can develop a project that is budget neutral, that doesn't cost you any money, that can upgrade your school systems, we would like your support. So the third step on it is the investment grade audit that we talked about. Mechanics of cash flow is pretty simple. You have X amount of savings, multiply that over 15 years, that's how much stuff that you can afford to do. And that takes on your debt service, depending on your bond rates. We will have cash flow performance that kind of show you some different rates. We'll work with different lenders. We work with different people if you need that. And it's all up to you to kind of customize a project. We don't say you have to go 15 years. If you want to go 2, great. If you want to go 7, great. It's all about how much improvements do you need to do based on the amount of savings that you have to pay for it. So, next one, please. Life expectancy, we're not going to, again, we're looking at 15 years. So we're not going to come back and say, hey, we want to do this and it's going to take 50 years to pay for it. Well, obviously, it's not going to work out financially. I mean, the piece of equipment, you're not going to finance an air conditioner for 50 or 75 years. The life will be exceeded. So what we do is we target those energy conservation measures that the useful life will pay for itself within the allotted time period. So, okay, next one. A little bit about us. I kind of went through this a little bit faster, but the annual reconciliation of savings, that's huge. Because every year you know that you're going to have the money either through the energy savings or through Train writing you a check to offset that gap to pay for the improvements. Direct access to Train equipment. As you start to build new buildings, build new school systems, we are the largest manufacturer of HVAC. We are going to be a direct partner with the county to help with all the HVAC, all the controls, everything that we have. We're going to try to leverage that with you to save you in different ways as part of that partnership moving forward. Non-proprietary. We're not going to put any controls in here that is going to lock you into Train. Everything that we put in here is something that can be and could be maintained by anybody else. We're not going to put something in that nobody else can work on. Everything we want that we put in is all open protocol. So you're not locked in. It's our job to earn your business rather than lock you into it. The guaranteed and fixed investment. This is one of the biggest things, and I'm sure you do a lot of construction projects where you get a lot of change orders and different stuff. We don't do change orders. We design the projects. We're the general contractor on everything. If we miss it, we miss it. So we assume all the risk for those construction activities once it gets to moving through that process. Long-term and ongoing help with facilities, maintenance. We're the manufacturers. We can help train your people to get them more efficient and more knowledgeable on ways to maintain your systems going forward, so you can help them grow and therefore help you maintain your facilities as you move forward. So I know I went through a lot of stuff. Is there any questions?
Any questions? Commissioner Rickon, do you have any questions? You're Chairman of Budget and Finance.
The school board request, it's not a county request. If the school board adopts it, they would have to come back to this body for a bond resolution if it goes all the way to that point. There are some what I call finance questions that I'm going to share with LaDonna after this meeting to be certain that if the school board goes through it, they'll understand it, because some of the requests for proposals and the bidding requests under the 1957 law needs to be adhered to, so we're not locking ourselves in and going to ever get criticized that we didn't put out the right request for proposals, the right request for qualifications of engineers and such. So we got to be careful about that under our budgeting law that we're under. So, but this is a school board issue. But if it comes down to funding it, a $3 million or whatever bond, again, we got to figure out what fund that's going to come under, what pennies are going to raise those bond dollars, and how we track through the school budget the savings that are going to pay the pennies for that bond. A lot of financing questions. So it's, you know, there's probably our savings not only to the school system. We all want our county buildings, schools or counties, to be energy efficient, to save real operating dollars, and if we have, and there's probably some legitimate investments that all our buildings need. But it's kind of problematic, a little bit of the chicken and the egg issue here on how we go about it. So,
well, if you're okay, I'd like to address a couple of your concerns. First, with performance contracting under Tennessee Annotated Code, we are considered professional services. Just like hiring an engineer, hiring an attorney, under that code, we're considered professional services. So I just want to make sure that that's right. Sure.
Our county budget law,
Yes, sir. And
I've been given to understand that at current, we have approximately $56 million in bond debt already. All right, if this German auto giant comes in, and we're going to be another $1.5 million right there. Anyway, if the state doesn't come through with that 4.475, we'll probably have to pick that up. So this is probably the most in debt that Coffee County has ever been. And we need to take and consider that. I think that this is a good proposal. But my problem with this is, hey, we have already assumed so much debt. We have, what? We have a AAA rating. How much longer? We need to take those things into consideration as well.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Well, I guess, and I may have mentioned it during the Budget and Finance meeting last week, some real-world examples and results.
Sure.
I know that y'all had spoken to that, and I guess something that doesn't pertain to what you guys are doing or proposing is, on our school budget, we of course approve maintenance dollars and things like that that are meant to address problems such as this throughout the year. And I guess my question, not necessarily for you guys, but for Director of Schools, would be, what do we do with those dollars? And if we're replacing equipment through a bond issuance and guaranteed savings, then that excess money that is typically used to replace units and do upgrades, where does that money then go?
Well, the savings will go to pay for the bond. So we won't be gaining any money per se, other than to reinvest in our facilities. And the state cut our BEP funding for capital outlay years ago. They're trying to get some of that restored. So we've been operating with no money from the state basically to help us with capital outlay. So I will tell you, Coffee County Schools, we are in desperate need of some capital improvements. And Mr. Pettigo and Mr. Goodman are working on a capital improvement plan. They presented that to the board. And we did meet with the Budget and Finance. And Mr. Bricken made a comment about one of the chillers at the high school. And I said, well, at our new high school that's 35 years old, and he said, well, I'm sure it's not the original chiller, but it actually is. I mean, that has we far exceeded its lifespan. So if we don't do this initiative, we are going to have to ask for additional money because we've been putting Band-Aid on things for years.
And I can tell you that we do a lot of these school systems, and if I think there's about $3 million that will cash flow, you've probably got about $12 to $14 million worth of needs that won't be able to be paid for in a reasonable amount of time with energy savings. Meaning that some of these things that we look at and we go through everything from the roof down to the foundation, and we're going to let you know everything that we find. There's a lot of items that'll have 100, 200-year paybacks on them that may need to be addressed, and that's where the ongoing maintenance budgets and capital budgets, that's the reason I said early on, it doesn't replace those. There's going to be things that need to be done that there's just not enough energy savings to pay for. But what we do is we look at, we call them the high targeted things that are really bad right now that need to be addressed, things that have an energy return from a payback standpoint, and we try to put as much of that as we can to where you've got the energy savings to pay for it. Otherwise, you're in the same situation you are now. You've got a lot of needs, you got a little money for those improvements, so you're stretching them out over time. But the biggest thing I would tell you, and I understand what you're saying about your debt capacity, but you got to look at it this way. Every year, you're throwing away $200,000 that is gone forever. This way, we can put that money back into the schools to where you can get some benefit out of it.
Yeah,
Commissioner Kelly.
I think what Mr. Thacker was saying was it would really be a novel approach if we actually took our savings and paid down existing debt before we took on, I know you need a lot of improvements, but I'd like to pay off something we've got with the savings before we go jumping in and borrowing more money just to have, I know, the needs met. But at the same time, we've got to somewhere get a hold of what's going on. We've got a couple of things that really concern me. You talked about you getting cut at the federal level. We may not have seen part of what we're getting cut at the federal level. This county gets a huge chunk of change because Arnold Air Force Base is out here. One of the things the president has said he targeted way back when he came in office was he did not want any more ground testing. He wanted computational fluid dynamics testing, which would eliminate Arnold Center if they ever really did that. I don't know that they ever will, but there's issues. We've got sequestration going on. We've got the federal government taking up every extra nickel that anybody has because they think they can't do anything but raise revenue and spend more. We're not going to have a revenue source to go to get money. So we need to start retiring debt and get our house in order before we take on additional debt. And that's my admonition to the school board. I know it's tough, but we really need to be taking on how to pay down what we have so we don't face that problem in the future.
I agree with you. I guess I just want to again say this is at the worst possible scenario, budget neutral. At the best possible scenario, and you talked about real world, I've done this in Jefferson County, and I did ask the finance gentleman there how much, because it's been a full year since we have completed the project of train, and they actually saved beyond what they were proposed to save. They saved over $30,000 more. So that was budget positive. So that's all I've got.
And to answer your question, I mean, from where we've done this, I mean, year-to-date, Knox County Schools, we're about $85 or $95 million with our school system that we've done over the last 5 or 6 years. You got Jefferson County, like you talked about. You got Cumberland County. You got Cheatham County, Ashland City. You know, there's a host of counties that we have done this for, and they're all kind of in the same mechanism. Like I said, it doesn't impact your budget. I mean, it's budget neutral or positive.
Commissioner Alford?
I guess my question is, the next step or the next phase, you said would not cost the county anything, correct? And then we would be getting a report back from that phase before we proceed on to go anywhere else, right? Well, the school board will, but I would think that they would share that information with us.
We would.
The school board.
Yes, sir, but the main reason we're here tonight is because I don't want to spend $30,000 if you don't think you would support a project that is budget neutral. If I come back and say, I found a way that it's not going to cost you another dime and we can improve your facilities, I don't want to go spend that money if I don't have the confidence that you would support us. Now, I know there's a lot of variables, and this is conceptual only, but the concept is if we spend the money to develop this at our own risk, and we can come back with something that's neutral, doesn't cost you money, would you support it?
Budget neutral, I love. Budget positive, I love even more. And I think from some of the programs that I've been involved with some of the stuff, I think it's definitely worth letting you go to the next phase and take a look to see what's there, and then get that report back and see what effect it's going to have. That would be my thing. I mean, if it doesn't cost anything to go to the next phase, do the analysis, I can't see that it's going to hurt the county any.
But I think are you saying though it is going to cost you $30,000 to go to the next phase? So he wants to know how do you feel about it now? That's what.
Yeah, and
well, now, I'm hearing no money. Are you saying that it's costing us money?
No. We're willing to take it on the risk. Okay, I'm going to spend probably $30,000 of Train's money to go to the next step and do the preliminary development. But I don't want to waste my company's money if I don't feel that this board would support a budget neutral project. If it didn't cost, if we came back and delivered everything we told you, we could do all this stuff without having to go to the tax base or you come up with dollars. if you would be willing to conceptually support that idea, I don't mind making an investment in this community.
When
But
would
if you
we
tell
be
me,
expected to issue this $3 million bond?
I'm
That's
sorry?
my question. When would we be expected to issue the $3 million bond?
if you look at typical development time, if you told me to go now, it would be probably 9 to 12 months before I could have a final contract in front of you. Maybe faster. You've only got 9 schools, which is good because we've got them. We really put our engineers on it. We could do it faster if, depending on how fast the board wants to move.
Okay, any other questions?
Well, I'd just like to say that the concept of the guaranteed savings, I fully understand and agree that it's a good idea. It's just that the thought or the idea of adding more, even long-term debt that's even paid for itself to the county does concern me, because we're the ones who are accountable for that when at the end of the day, we just issued last year, and this is not anybody's, the school director's fault or anything. She's new in this position this year, but last year we just issued a $26 million bond for some school improvements, and we sat in this room and we debated and talked about, is it the best use of our money when we know we've got improvements that are needed throughout the system, and yet we did it anyway. So, and it has absolutely nothing to do, it's not a reflection on our current director or anything like that, or even the past director, but it concerns me when last year's $26 million, this year could be $3 million. It's some very real concerns. I like the idea of the guaranteed savings. It's a win-win for you. It's a win-win for us. I understand that. But the idea and the notion of accepting more long-term debt, and it's closer to $100 million when we consider principal and interest is what our county has right now. It concerns me. So I'll just leave it with that.
I understand.
All right. Any other questions? If not, now what you're voting on, if you vote yes, you're...
No, sir. There's no reason to vote on this.
This was information only.
Well... Okay. All right. Okay. What?
Well, and I'd like to add one thing to that, Rush, is since it's a county bond and a school project, where do the savings go? Would the savings be used to retire the debt faster, or would it go into the school budget and use, since they're the one actually paying the electric bill, does it go into their budget, then their savings, and they can use it for whatever they so choose?
Well, it might not need to be a vote, but he's wanting to get a general feeling of how this commission feels about it before he invests $30,000 more. Well, okay.
Mr. Mayor, I guess part of it is how comfortable is the school board taking on the project, taking it to the next step, knowing that they're going to send us this, whatever, how many dollars back out of their budget to pay for this in the future. It's an issue of them paying us back. So they're going to have to decide they can take that much out of their budget and not use it for something else to pay us back for the bond that we're going to issue on their behalf. So they're the guys that got to be sure they want to make that step and that they're going to give up that revenue if there's a hiccup in it.
Okay, so we're going to go down to statements and announcements. Any statements, any announcements from the commission?
Mr. Chairman, there's going to be a recovery country ham breakfast Saturday after this meeting. It's free country ham. Hopefully it'll help the commissioners recover. And
Is this the Farm Bureau?
It's a legislative breakfast that will be at the community meeting room here in the CCAP building, and it's 8 o'clock Saturday morning, and Representative Matheny and Ms. Bowling. Lieutenant Bowling and Matheny will be there to answer questions and so forth. But all of you are invited, and if you would just let Brenda know if you're coming, you and your spouses are invited, and that's Saturday morning at 8 o'clock.
Mr. Mayor, I got one comment, and that is I'm very serious about we need to take some action to get a professional planning director in here where we can move forward and to reconstitute that committee, because I know that, it went through, I found out tonight, I was told different by Mr. Darden, but I've been told it went through the zoning appeals, the BZE. Those are members of that same planning commission, I believe, who voted on what we tabled. But the other thing, I think, I'd like to see Jimmy introduce our new director.
Yeah. If he's still here.
I was going to, but he's gone.
He probably had to go on a call, Jimmy.
He may have either that or he's going to go over to the Jiffy Burger, but they're closed, so.
Okay, if... Okay, Joe, let's see,
15 was that school board reorganization.
Yeah, you did third and fourth. Who made the motion, though? You're right. You went second, third, fourth, and fifth. Oh, okay, Tim? Yeah.
Did pass both.
Yes. Okay, we got it. Okay, he wants to say one more thing. Are you through, Commissioner? Is all the other commissioners through? Okay. Okay. Any other commissioner want to say anything? Oh.
We were asked to do that, and we're starting that process now, so we're gathering the information.
Okay, and you want to...
Would I be out of line if I know you can't do an official vote, but if I just asked for a show of hands that would conceptually support something like this, to kind of give me a feel of how...
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. All in favor, stand up, if you can.